2 days after the divorce at 3:12 a.m. in the ER. I had just signed my daughter's admission papers when I saw my ex-husband walk straight into the VIP wing with another woman. I froze. 16 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Leave now, if you still want your child safe. A few hours later, after getting home and digging through the system, I was stunned to find two separate bills for the exact same emergency visit inside his own VIP clinic network. That's when I knew. This wasn't a normal divorce. It was a trap he had carefully built. Thank you for being here. Before we begin, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is there right now. Your presence truly matters. Quick note: this story includes some fictionalized details to emphasize the message, but the core lesson is what I hope stays with you. At 3:12 a.m. on December 18th, 2025, I stood alone at the VCU Health reception desk, signing admission papers for my daughter, while watching my ex-husband walk through the executive clinic's frosted glass doors with another woman holding a blue VIP card. But let me start where the night really began. At 1:30 a.m., I woke to the sound I'd learned to recognize in half a second: Margot's cough, the kind that starts shallow and turns into something that steals oxygen faster than panic can replace it. I was in her room before my feet remembered how to move, flipping on the bedside lamp to see my 14-year-old daughter sitting upright, shoulders hunched, lips already losing color. "Inhaler," I said, reaching for the nightstand drawer. She shook her head, gasping. "Empty. I'd meant to refill it Tuesday." It was Thursday now. The spare was downstairs. By the time I came back up with it, her lips had gone from pale pink to something closer to gray. "Two puffs, wait 30 seconds, nothing changed." I grabbed my keys, her blanket, my phone. No time to call an ambulance and wait. VCU Health was 12 minutes away if I drove like someone who understood what 86% oxygen saturation meant. The highway at 2 a.m. in December is the kind of empty that makes you forget other people exist. One hand on the wheel, the other holding Margot's hand. My eyes flicking between the road and the oxygen monitor clipped to her finger. I'd bought it online after her last attack, the kind of purchase you make at midnight when fear is cheaper than Amazon Prime shipping. 91%, 89.88. I started reading the numbers aloud, the way I used to read morning traffic reports on the radio 5 years ago, back when my voice was something thousands of people recognized within the first 3 words. Simone Whitfield, 52, once had that voice. Tonight, no one in the ER would recognize it, except the admissions nurse reading my name off my driver's license. 86%, I said, keeping my tone flat factual. Highway 64, East Light traffic, 12-minute ETA. It was the only way I didn't break down. Margot squeezed my hand weakly. "Mom, I can't." "We're almost there, keep breathing with me." The VCU Health entrance at 2:45 a.m. is lit like a stage-set fluorescent lights cutting through winter darkness so sharp you can taste the cold. I pulled up to the ambulance bay, lifted Margot out of the passenger seat, and carried her through automatic doors that opened too slowly. A nurse met me halfway across the waiting room. Dr. Harlan Webb, the ER physician on night duty, clipped a new oxygen monitor to Margot's finger and read the numbers aloud without looking at me. 85%, dropping. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with the kind of calm that comes from seeing this exact thing 50 times a month. He didn't know that 50 feet away, through a hallway I couldn't see yet, Margot's father was walking into a different medical system entirely. "Needs nebulizer treatment immediately," Dr. Webb said, handing me a clipboard. "Sign here." I signed. My hand moved automatically the way it used to move through contracts when I had a producer in a studio and a morning show that people listened to while driving to work. Now I was signing admission forms at 3:12 a.m. for my daughter who couldn't breathe, and the nurse was asking a question I should have been ready for. "Where's the child's father?" "I don't know." That was true. 2 days ago, 48 hours, I'd signed divorce papers and stopped knowing where Lawrence Garrett spent his nights. But at exactly 3:12 a.m. I found out. He walked through the left hallway, the one marked Executive Clinic Entrance, in small silver letters most people wouldn't notice unless they were standing exactly where I was standing. Lawrence Garrett, 55, walked with the unhurried confidence of someone who'd been there before, many times before. Next to him, holding a blue VIP card up to the reader with practiced ease, was Valentina Kendrick. I knew her name because I'd seen it on hospital paperwork once, back when I still accompanied Lawrence to charity events. Patient Experience Coordinator Executive Suite. She was 28, dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, the kind of efficient that makes you invisible until you realize she's the one who knows where everything is. She swiped the card, the frosted glass doors slid open, they disappeared inside. Lawrence never looked toward the main ER. Never looked toward the desk where I stood signing forms for the daughter we'd made together. Never looked back. 2 days ago, I still had someone to call at 1:30 a.m. when the inhaler was empty. Now I had no one, and apparently that was fine because he was 50 feet away and didn't need to know. Dr. Webb nodded at the paperwork. We'll get her started on the nebulizer. You can wait here or come back to the room. I'll come back. They wheeled Margot through the double doors at 3:28 a.m. I stood alone in the hallway holding my phone, watching the blue light from the screen reflect off the linoleum. The text came from an unknown number, no punctuation, no name. If you want your child to be at peace, turn around. I read it twice, looked at the screen, looked at the double doors where Margot had disappeared, looked at the screen again. I didn't delete it. Instead, I took a screenshot. Then I opened my phone's folder system and created a new directory. I could have called it Evidence or December or Threats, but I called it audio_archive_2025 because that was the one name no one would guess, the one that sounded like something left over from my old life, the one that would hide in plain sight if anyone ever looked through my phone. The voice in my head. The radio voice I'd buried 5 years ago when I married someone who said I didn't need to work anymore, said one word. Start. Dr. Webb opened the door to Margot's room. She's stable, you can come in. I adjusted my shirt, smoothed my hair, walked toward my daughter. And I realized I was already counting. How many minutes since the blue card disappeared? 16. How many steps from the ER desk to the VIP entrance? 42. How many seconds the threat took to arrive after Lawrence vanished? Exactly 16 minutes. 3 people in that hospital at 3:12 a.m. 1 dying, 1 watching, 2 not looking back. I sat down next to Margot's bed, held her hand, listened to the nebulizer hiss. And I started keeping track. By morning, Margot was asleep in the passenger seat, and the nebulizer machine was packed in a hospital bag I'd carry home like proof of something I couldn't name yet. 8 hours had passed since I watched Lawrence disappear behind frosted glass. Now daylight filled the discharge room windows, too bright, too normal, and I was signing more papers. Dr. Eleanor Ashford. The day shift physician slid the release forms across the desk with the routine efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. She was maybe 50, gray streak and dark hair, reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. She had no idea the prescription she was about to hand me would connect my daughter's asthma to a political fraud network. Everything's stable now, she said, signing her name at the bottom of 3 pages. Standard albuterol steroid inhaler for maintenance. This is just a recommendation for follow-up. She passed me the prescription. I read it the way I used to read commercial copy on air. Every word, every number, every piece of information someone wanted me to deliver without questioning. Albuterol sulfate, check. Steroid maintenance, check. Bottom corner smaller font. Refer Dr. Preston Caldwell, Pediatric Pulmonology Executive Clinic, Floor 4. I folded the prescription into my bag. Thank you, I said. Dr. Ashford smiled, already reaching for the next file. The smell of coffee drifted from the hospital cafe down the hall, mixing with antiseptic and the particular quiet of a building that never stops working, but pretends to rest during daylight. Margot stirred in the wheelchair beside me. Can we go home now? Yes. I didn't say what I was thinking, Executive Clinic. Floor 4, Dr. Preston Caldwell. 3 facts I didn't ask for written on a prescription I'd memorized before sunset. That evening, I sat at my desk in the townhouse with Margot asleep upstairs, and my laptop screen glowing in the December darkness. I typed the name into Google the way you type anything you want to pretend is casual research. Dr. Preston Caldwell Richmond. First result, VCU Health, Pediatric Pulmonology. Professional headshot credentials, office hours. Second result, Executive Clinic Staff Directory, Floor 4. Third result, Medical Advisory Board Garrett Campaign Health Initiative. I read it again. Then I read it aloud the way I used to read news copy when I needed to make sure I wasn't imagining the words. Dr. Preston Caldwell, Medical Advisory Board, Garrett Campaign Health Initiative. Same doctor. This city had only one pediatrician recommended on my child's prescription, and he worked for my ex-husband's charity. I took a screenshot, added it to the audio_archive_2025 folder, opened a new document and titled it Timeline. December 19th, 2025, 8 a.m. Discharge prescription. Executive clinic referral. Campaign connection confirmed. I saved it. Stared at the single line on the screen. They weren't just using the hospital. They were using my daughter's prescription. They were using her lungs to build their wall. I closed the laptop. Opened it again. There was something else I needed to read, something I'd signed 2 days ago and hadn't looked at since. The divorce papers were still in the folder where I'd filed them, blue cover law firm logo, 43 pages that were supposed to represent the end of 12 years. I'd read them once on signing day fast, the way you read anything when a lawyer is pointing at signature lines and saying, here, here, and here. Now I read them the way I used to read contracts when I had a radio show, and a producer who said, never sign anything you haven't read 3 times. Page 1. Dissolution of marriage. Page 4. Property division. Page 7. Alimony structure, which I'd waived because Lawrence's lawyer said it would expedite the process, and my lawyer nodded. My lawyer, the one who'd come recommended by someone I couldn't remember now, the one who'd said, this is very standard and you're getting a fair deal, and never once asked me to slow down. Page 11. After property division. Before the final alimony section that didn't apply to me anyway. Appendix C. I read it aloud using my radio voice, the one that parses every syllable because listeners only hear things once and you can't afford to mumble. Party A agrees not to access, request, or discuss any documents, records, or communications related to charitable activities and campaigning undertaken by Party B or related entities for a period of 24 months from the signing date. I put the paper down, picked it up, read it again. 24 months, 2 years. Starting from the day I signed, which was 2 days ago, which meant I had 728 days of legally binding silence about anything Lawrence did with his campaign or his charity. Page 11. Buried after property division before alimony, in the place where people stop reading carefully because they think the hard part is over. My original lawyer hadn't marked this clause, hadn't highlighted it, hadn't said, you might want to think about this, or, do you understand what you're agreeing to? Or anything that would have made me slow down. How long had they been planning this? While I was making breakfast, while I was believing the divorce was just a divorce. I looked at the prescription lying next to the divorce papers. Dr. Preston Caldwell, Executive Clinic Medical Advisory Board. And next to that, my laptop screen still showing the Google search results. They knew I would look. They knew I would find the connections. They knew eventually I'd want to ask questions about why my daughter's prescription was feeding into the same system where Lawrence walked with a blue VIP card at 3:12 a.m. And they'd locked the door before I knew I needed to open it. I opened my laptop again, pulled up the timeline document, added a new line below the first. December 19th, 2025 evening. Divorce papers. Appendix C reviewed. 24-month access restriction to campaign/charity documents. Clause signed December 16, 2025. Restriction active until December 16, 2027. I stared at the screen, then I typed one more line. They locked the door before I knew I needed to open it, which means they know exactly what's behind it. I saved the document, looked at the divorce papers spread across my desk like evidence at a crime scene, looked at the prescription with its innocent-looking referral code, looked at my phone where the anonymous threat from last night still sat in audio_archive_2025 times, stamp 3:28 a.m., 16 minutes after Lawrence vanished. Somewhere in this city, someone was counting on me staying quiet for 2 years. I folded the divorce papers back into their blue folder, put the prescription on top, closed my laptop, and I started planning how to open a locked door. The first step to opening a locked door is finding out who's watching it. The phone rang at 7:30 p.m. the next evening. Before I even looked at the caller ID, I opened the voice recorder app, a reflex from 5 years of radio interviews, where every word could be edited, spliced, weaponized. The screen showed a Richmond number I didn't recognize. I answered, "Hello. Simone, this is Desmond Sinclair." The voice came through warm, concerned, like a friend calling to check on someone after surgery. Desmond Sinclair, 45, was Lawrence's campaign advisor, the kind of political strategist whose voice was engineered to sound caring while avoiding any phrase that could create legal liability. I'd met him twice during the marriage, both times at fundraisers where he'd worked the room like someone conducting an orchestra only he could hear. I heard about Margot's hospital visit, he continued. Lawrence wanted me to reach out. We're all concerned. How is she? I glanced through the doorway to the living room where Margot sat doing homework, earbuds and oblivious. She's fine, I said. That's wonderful. These things can be so frightening. You handled it beautifully. A pause perfectly timed. We just want Lawrence to have peace and quiet during this period campaign stress, you understand. If you have any concerns about finances, about the child, we can arrange. I stopped listening to the content and started listening to the structure. If you have concerns was a trap. I'd used the same technique interviewing politicians in 2018. If I said yes, I admitted instability. If I said no, I closed the door to future support. Either way, he'd file a report. Subject expressed concerns or subject refused assistance. I'd taught workshops on this. Thank you, I said, cutting him off mid-sentence. My child is fine. I hung up. The recorder app showed 1 minute 47 seconds. I saved it to audio_archive_2025, labeled it Desmond_support_call_December 20, and added a note. Classic if you have concerns, trap campaign surveillance, confirmed. Then I opened my contacts and found the name I'd added 2 days ago, Kathleen Pierce. Kathleen was the lawyer I should have hired for the divorce, the one who didn't come recommended by someone I couldn't remember, the one who charged twice as much and told clients the truth instead of what would close the case fastest. I'd found her through a Google search for Richmond family law aggressive. And when I'd called her yesterday to explain Appendix C, she'd said one sentence that made me hire her on the spot. That's not a divorce clause, that's a gag order. I texted her, need all email exchanges from divorce process. Everything. She called back in 10 minutes. What are you looking for specifically? Kathleen asked. Patterns, I said. Things my first lawyer missed. Things they didn't think I'd see. Give me 20 minutes. He called to make me feel supported. But people who truly need support don't receive a scheduled check-in call with pre-scripted phrasing. They receive help that arrives before they know to ask. Kathleen's email arrived at 8:03 p.m. Encrypted attachment, 47 messages. Subject line, Divorce Communication Archive, confidential. I downloaded it, entered the password she'd texted separately, and opened a PDF containing 3 months of correspondence between my original lawyer, Lawrence's legal team, and various intermediaries I didn't recognize. I scrolled chronologically, reading the way I used to read listener emails during commercial breaks, scanning for keywords, patterns, anything that didn't match the surrounding tone. September initial filing standard language. October property negotiation furniture division retirement account splits. November. The settlement draft back and forth on alimony. I didn't want final language on Appendix C that my lawyer had marked approved without comment. I kept scrolling. November 15th, 2025, 2:47 p.m. Subject medical liaison update. The sender line showed an address I didn't recognize, but the domain was clear, someone at garrettcampaign.org. The recipient list included Lawrence's legal team, someone named V. Kendrick, and buried in the CC line, my old email address, the one I'd had before the divorce, before I'd changed it to something Lawrence couldn't monitor. They'd sent it to the wrong address. A simple mistake. The kind that happens when you're copying distribution lists and don't notice one address is outdated. The email body contained one line. Trust the clinic timeline on track. No signature, no context, no explanation. I read it again. Read it aloud. Trust the clinic timeline on track. November 15th was 33 days before the ER. 5 weeks before I'd stood at the admission desk, watching Lawrence walk through frosted glass doors. 1 month before I'd signed divorce papers with Appendix C buried on page 11. Someone believed the clinic was following a timeline. What timeline? Who's for what purpose? I took a screenshot of the email. Captured the metadata showing the send date, the campaign domain, the mistaken CC. Added it to audio_archive_2025. Then I opened a new document and titled it Timeline_master. November 15th, 2025, 2:47 p.m. Internal campaign email. Medical liaison update. Trust the clinic timeline on track. Sent from @garrettcampaign.org. Mistakenly CC'd to old email address. 33 days before ER incident. I added the second entry. December 18th, 2025, 3:12 a.m. ER admission. Lawrence observed entering executive clinic with Valentina Kendrick blue VIP card. Anonymous threat received 3:28 a.m. 16 minutes later. Third entry. December 19th, 2025, 8 a.m. Discharge prescription includes referral to Dr. Preston Caldwell, Executive Clinic, Floor 4. Google search confirms Medical Advisory Board, Garrett Campaign Health Initiative. Fourth entry. December 20th, 2025, 7:30 p.m. Desmond Sinclair support call. Language trap techniques. Campaign surveillance confirmed. I stared at the screen. 4 entries. Not enough for a complete pattern, but enough to know there was one. November 15th. 1 month before divorce. 5 weeks before the ER. They were already following a timeline I didn't know existed. I typed a 5th line and flagged it red. Unknown. What is the timeline? What is their deadline? What happens when they reach it? I saved the document. Looked at my phone where Desmond's recorded call sat waiting. Looked at the email with its single cryptic sentence. Somewhere in this city, someone was counting down to something. And I had 33 days of past activity, one mistaken email, and a locked door I still couldn't open. But now I knew the door had a timeline, which meant eventually someone would have to open it themselves. They opened the door the next morning at 7:45 a.m. The black SUV with tinted windows sat exactly 50 meters from Richmond Middle School's gate, close enough to watch, far enough to claim coincidence. It was still there 2 minutes after Margot disappeared through the double doors. I'd parked under the bare eucalyptus trees watching the morning drop-off routine. Cars pulling up, kids climbing out backpacks, and the particular chaos of teenagers pretending not to care. Margot opened the passenger door. "Love you, Mom?" "Love you," I said. She walked toward the building, earbuds already in, shoulders hunched against December cold. I watched her go inside. Then I looked at the SUV. Electric model, expensive Virginia plates I couldn't read from the front. No one got out. The engine was off, no exhaust in the cold air, which meant whoever was inside had been waiting long enough to shut everything down. I counted to 60, the SUV didn't move. I started my car, pulled out as if leaving, then circled the block and came back from the opposite direction where I could see the rear plate. Took 3 photos. Sent them to Kathleen's school gate. Still here after children entered. Need trace. Then I left before whoever was inside could photograph me photographing them. At 3 o'clock, I sat in a grocery store parking lot 15 minutes from home. Kathleen pulled up in a silver sedan and slid into my passenger seat. "Tell me everything," she said. I'd prepared the list chronologically the way I used to prepare interview notes. November 15th, campaign email saying trust the clinic timeline on track. December 18th, ER admission. Lawrence entering executive clinic at 3:12 a.m. Anonymous threat, 16 minutes later. December 19. Discharge prescription referral to Dr. Preston Caldwell, Medical Advisory Board for Lawrence's campaign charity. Appendix C, locking my access to campaign documents for 24 months. December 20th. Desmond's manipulation call. December 21st. Black SUV at my daughter's school. Kathleen was quiet for 4 seconds. "Okay," she said finally. "But we won't do anything until we have clean evidence. No posting, no talking, no one knows except you and me." "Understood. And you need to understand they're waiting for you to make one wrong move. Just one. The second you post something, call a reporter, send an angry email, they'll use it. They'll say you're unstable, harassing them, weaponizing the divorce. Everything you have becomes proof you're the problem." Kathleen says, "Wait for clean evidence." Lawrence says I'm unstable. Desmond offers support I don't need. And someone is asking my daughter about her father's name at school. This is what war looks like when no one admits it's war. "So I wait," I said. "You document, you wait. You don't make the first wrong move." She got out and drove away separately the way we'd arrived. I sat alone for 2 minutes watching shoppers push carts toward cars full of normal problems. Then I drove home. The text from Margot arrived at 6:14 p.m. just as I turned onto our street. "Mom, someone asked me Dad's full name today." I pulled over. 5 words, my daughter, their next move. I typed back, say you don't know. That's the truth. She sent a thumbs up emoji. I put the phone down and kept driving. The radio was on background noise I hadn't been listening to. But now at the stoplight 3 blocks from home, I heard a voice I recognized. My own. The station was playing archives, filler programming from slow afternoon hours. My voice from 5 years ago interviewing someone I'd forgotten. And that's when you knew you had to speak up, my old voice asked. 3 seconds of silence. I'd learned to let silence sit to give people space to think. The woman being interviewed, domestic violence survivor, anonymous call-in, said, I waited until I had everything documented, then I waited longer. Why longer? I asked voice comm professional. Because the right time isn't when you're ready, it's when they're not. I sat in my driveway with the engine off, listening to myself conduct an interview I'd forgotten I'd done. The segment ended, commercial break. I turned off the radio. Kathleen had said, don't make one wrong move. But what she didn't know, what Lawrence didn't know, what Desmond couldn't have researched, was that I'd spent 15 years learning to wait for the exact right beat. Not the first beat, not the obvious one. The beat where the silence mattered more than the words, where the pause made the question land harder than any follow-up could. In radio, timing is everything. You speak too soon, you lose the moment. You speak too late, you lose the audience. But if you wait for the exact right beat, the one where everyone is listening, where the question hangs in the air just long enough you own the entire room. They'd given me the wrong enemy, someone who knows timing better than they do. I picked up my phone and added to timeline_master. December 21st, 2025. Black SUV school surveillance. Margot questioned about father's name. Kathleen confirms wait for clean evidence, no wrong moves. Then I added one more line flagged green. Strategy professional patience. Wait for their beat, not mine. They will make the first wrong move. I saved it, walked inside, made dinner. And I started listening for the beat. The beat arrived 2 days later in the form of a forensic accountant with a briefcase full of flowcharts. The documents spread across Kathleen's conference table looked like a river system, tributaries of money flowing from one shell company to another, each LLC, a bend in the stream that made the source harder to trace. Gerald Moss pointed to the delta where $1.2 million disappeared into Nevada's corporate void. Gerald Moss was a forensic accountant in his late 50s who'd spent 3 decades unraveling corporate fraud for the FBI before going independent. He spread the first chart across the table with the tired precision of someone who'd seen this pattern 100 times before and knew exactly how it would end. Main charity account, he said, tapping the top box with his pen. Garrett Campaign Health Initiative. Public donations, fundraising events, all the money people gave thinking they were funding mammograms and prenatal care. I sat across from him in Kathleen's downtown conference room, winter afternoon light, cutting through the window blinds and sharp lines across the documents. Then it moves here. Gerald traced the first arrow. LLC 1 called Riverside Medical Consulting. Vague name. Registered to a mailbox address in Maryland. No physical office, no employees, just a shell. Second arrow. LLC 2 Capital Health Services. Delaware registration. Same story, no office, no staff, corporate address is a registered agent service. Third arrow. LLC 3 Summit Wellness Partners. Nevada. Nevada is a corporate veil state. They don't require disclosure of beneficial owners. This is where trails go to die. Kathleen leaned forward. How much total? Gerald pulled out a second sheet with transaction dates and amounts. So far, I've tracked 3 major transfers. August 16, 2025, $250,000. September 23, 2025, $500,000. October 19, 2025, $1,200,000. Total through this route, $1.95 million. He paused. But this is just one route I found. There could be more. I stared at the numbers. Round sums, clean transfers. Not the messy embezzlement of someone stealing in panic, but the systematic withdrawal of someone following a plan. Show me the dates again, I said. Gerald slid a third document across the table, a printed calendar from the Garrett Campaign website, public events highlighted. August 15th, Health Initiative Gala, he said, placing it next to the flow chart. Public fundraiser black tie event raised $400,000 according to the press release. The $250,000 transfer posted the next day. He moved his finger down. September 22nd, Women's Health Forum. Community event corporate sponsors raised $600,000. The $500,000 transfer posted the next day. October 18th, Medical Innovation Summit. Big event hospital partnerships raised over $1 million. The $1.2 million transfer posted the next day. I looked at the pattern. Each withdrawal within 48 hours of a major public fundraising event. They're using the fundraising events as cover, I said. The money moves while everyone's celebrating the public success. Gerald nodded. And someone knew the schedule in advance. The transfer orders weren't reactive. They were placed 24 to 48 hours before each event went public. Someone with access to the campaign's internal calendar orchestrated this. 3 fundraising events celebrating health initiatives for women and children. 3 transfers totaling $1.95 million, stolen from those same initiatives. They took money meant for mammograms and prenatal care and hid it in Nevada shell companies. Kathleen was making notes. This is systematic fraud, premeditated, coordinated. Yes, Gerald said. This isn't someone stealing. This is someone executing a plan. I asked the question that had been forming since he'd laid out the first chart. Who authorized the transfers? Gerald pulled out a 4th document, bank authorization forms, digital copies. That's where it gets interesting, he said. The withdrawals from the main charity account require authorized signatures, but look at the signature line. He pointed to the authorization field. Instead of a name, it showed Campaign Coordinator, Medical Liaison. Just a title, I asked. Just a title. No actual name on the bank records. The email address listed is medicalcoord@garrettcampaign.org, generic username campaign domain. I can't trace it to an individual without a subpoena. Kathleen sat back. We need a subpoena to force them to reveal the identity behind that email, but we need more evidence first or they'll destroy records before we can get it. How long had they been planning this? August, September, October. 3 months of systematic fraud while I believed my marriage was just ending badly, not that I was living next to organized crime. I looked at the flowchart again. Clean lines, round numbers. 3 shell companies layered like a wall between the source and the destination, and 1 blank space where a name should be. So we have the route, I said. We have the amounts, we have the timing, but we don't have the person. Not yet, Gerald said. But whoever this is, they had access to the campaign event schedule before it went public authority to move money from the charity account, and knowledge of how to structure shell companies across 3 states to hide the trail. That's not amateur hour. Kathleen walked Gerald out 20 minutes later. I stayed in the conference room staring at the documents spread across the table. I texted Kathleen. The money taker knows the event schedule. The one who knows the event schedule is in the campaign. I need that name. She replied, working on it. But remember one wrong move. I opened timeline_master on my phone and added a new entry flagged red. December 22nd, 2025. Auditor report. $1.95 million traced through 3 LLC layers. Transfers correlate with public fundraising events August to October 2025. Authorization signature campaign coordinator medical liaison title only. No name. Email medicalcoord@garrettcampaign.org. Then I added one more line flagged priority. Priority, identity of campaign coordinator, medical liaison equals connection point between charity fraud and executive clinic. I saved it. Gathered the documents Kathleen said I could take copies of. Walked to my car. Somewhere in this city, someone with a generic email address and a title instead of a name had stolen nearly $2 million from health initiatives meant for women and children. And I was going to find out who they were. It took Gerald Moss 2 more weeks to find the answer. When he spread the completed flowchart across the conference table on Christmas Eve morning, the number at the bottom wasn't $1.95 million anymore. It was $33,400,000. I'd been tracking the tributary while the river carried 17 times more money into the executive clinic's private accounts. The law office was nearly empty. Most of the staff had left early for holiday travel. Kathleen sat across from me in the conference room, still wearing her coat, because she'd driven straight from family breakfast when Gerald called. He'd worked through the holiday to finish this. I found the other routes, Gerald said. unfolding a diagram that looked like a circuit board, lines connecting boxes across 4 pages taped together. Main charity account flows to multiple LLCs, not just the 3 I showed you last week. He pointed to the expanded structure. LLC 1 Maryland, LLC 2 Delaware, LLC 3 Nevada. But then there's LLC 4 Cayman Islands, new layer I didn't catch before. All 4 layers end here. His pen tapped the final box. Executive Clinic Private Account, not part of VCU Health's main hospital system. Separate entity, separate books. How much total? Kathleen asked, though I could already see the number written at the bottom in Gerald's precise handwriting. $33,400,000. 18 months. January 2024 through June 2025. 23 major transactions ranging from $400,000 to $2.8 million each. I looked at the number, looked at it again. 17 times what he'd found the first week. You worked Christmas Eve to finish this, I said. Gerald shrugged. My kids are grown. And this, he gestured at the flowchart. This isn't embezzlement. This is infrastructure. Someone built a system designed to move this much money without detection. That takes planning, coordination, time. Kathleen leaned over the diagram, tracing the arrows with her finger. Show me where it goes after it reaches the clinic account. Gerald flipped to the second page, outflow analysis. Money enters the executive clinic account through all these routes, he said. Then it exits through a category labeled medical equipment and consulting services. 23 inbound transactions. 23 outbound transactions. Each one paired. Look at the dates. He'd highlighted them in yellow, dates spanning the same 18 months, amounts variable, but totaling exactly the same as the inflow. $33.4 million in, Gerald said. $33.4 million out. They're not keeping it in the clinic, I said. They're washing it through. Exactly. Medical equipment purchases that probably don't exist. Consulting fees for services never rendered. The money flows in dirty from charity fraud, flows out clean with medical invoices as cover. Classic laundering pattern. $33.4 million. I sat in that ER at 3:12 a.m., watching my daughter's oxygen levels drop to 85%, while someone somewhere was moving this much money through a hospital system that should have been saving children, not billing them as cover for fraud. Kathleen pulled the diagram closer, studying the signature lines on the transaction authorizations Gerald had printed as supporting documentation. Who signed these? She asked, though I already knew the answer. Gerald pointed to the authorization fields on every transaction, all 46 of them, 23 in and 23 out. Same signature on everyone. Digital signature, not handwritten. Title: Campaign Coordinator. Medical Liaison. Email: medicalcord@garrettcampaign.org. I'd seen that title before. The phantom position, the ghost in the system. Kathleen stood up, walked to her desk, and came back with 2 printed documents, organizational charts. I pulled these from public records, she said. VCU Health Staff Directory updated quarterly. Executive Clinic Leadership Roster published on their website. Look for the position. I scanned the VCU Health chart first. Administration, Medical Staff, Nursing Support Services. No Campaign Coordinator. No Medical Liaison. Executive Clinic Chart, Medical Director, Patient Services, Billing Coordinator, Clinical Staff. Nothing. It doesn't exist, I said. Kathleen nodded. There is no such position in the hospital structure. Not at VCU Health. Not at the executive clinic. The title was fabricated. It's Christmas Eve. Gerald worked through the holiday to finish this audit. Kathleen left her family dinner to review it. And somewhere, Lawrence is probably at a campaign event, smiling for photos, while $33.4 million flows through accounts no one's supposed to find. Someone created a fake position, I said slowly, so they could sign documents moving $33.4 million without using their real name or actual job title. Gerald tapped the signature field. Whoever this is, they have authority to move money from the charity account access to create transactions in the executive clinic system and enough knowledge of hospital administration to forge a plausible-sounding title that no one would question on a bank form. But they're real, I said. The position is fake, the person is real. Yes, Kathleen said, and we need to find out who they are. I stared at the fabricated title on 46 digital signatures, each one authorizing millions in fraudulent transfers through a hospital that had treated my daughter. The position didn't exist. But the person who'd invented it, who'd used it to wash more than $33 million through medical accounts, that person was walking around Richmond right now, probably enjoying Christmas Eve dinner, probably not worried at all. Hospital employment records are protected, Kathleen said. We'd need a warrant to access personnel files that would show us who has authorization to create transactions in the executive clinic system. And we can't get a warrant without probable cause that connects a specific person to the crime. So we have everything except the name, I said. We have everything except the name, she agreed. I opened my phone and added a new line to timeline_master flagged critical priority read. December 24th, 2025. Complete audit. $33.4 million total over 18 months, 4 LLC layers, ending at executive clinic private account. Laundered through medical equipment/consulting. Signature on all 46 transactions. Campaign coordinator, medical liaison. Position does not exist in hospital org charts fabricated title. Then I added one more line. Critical. Real identity behind fake coordinator title equals person who connects campaign charity. Hospital and all $33.4 million. I saved it. Looked at Gerald's flowchart spread across the table like a map of corruption. Somewhere in this city, someone had a real name, a real job, a real desk at that hospital. And I was going to find out who they were before they realized anyone was looking. Finding them meant waiting for them to make a mistake. The mistake arrived on December 26th at 8:47 a.m. The email from Desmond Sinclair had a subject line that almost looked helpful. Suggested statement, your review. The attachment was called draft_support_response.doc, as if I'd asked for help instead of being handed a weapon designed to sound like my surrender. I opened it at my desk with morning coffee, Margot still asleep upstairs. The document contained 2 paragraphs pre-written in first person as if I would read them to reporters or post them on social media. I understand this is a difficult time for the whole family. While I continue to process recent changes, I choose to focus on recovery and stabilization while protecting my daughter's privacy. I appreciate the community's support and ask for space during this transition. I read it twice. Then I read it aloud, the way I used to read copy, before recording, parsing each phrase for what it actually meant instead of what it claimed to mean. Difficult time for the whole family admits publicly there are family problems. Recovery and stabilization implies I'm unstable and need to recover from something. Process recent changes vague enough to sound like emotional distress, specific enough to suggest I can't handle divorce. Both phrases sounded supportive. Both phrases were legally admissive. Both phrases would make me look like someone who needed help, not someone documenting fraud. They're using the techniques I spent 15 years perfecting. They're weaponizing the interview methods I taught to journalism students. They think I don't recognize my own professional toolkit being turned against me. I taught this exact technique in 2019 to a class of broadcast journalism students at VCU, how to phrase questions that sound neutral but only allow admissive answers. How to offer language that feels supportive while legally establishing instability. How to give someone words that sound like their own, but actually belong to you. I forwarded the email to Kathleen with a new subject line script to portray me as unstable. Archive as evidence of manipulation attempt. Then I deleted Desmond's original email and went back to drinking my coffee. The next attack came 24 hours later. My phone started buzzing at 2:34 p.m. on December 27th, a text from a former radio colleague I hadn't spoken to in 3 years. Simone, someone posted this in a local parenting group. Is this real? Are you okay? The link opened to a Facebook group called Richmond Parenting Network, 3,400 members. The post had been up for 6 hours. Posted by an account called Richmond_community_2025 created December 26th, no profile photo, no post history. The post contained one 43-second audio clip and no text. I pressed play. My voice came through the phone speaker clear and familiar and wrong. I'm not okay. Pause. I can't take care of my child properly. Pause. I need help. 127 shares. 89 comments. Most of them concerned some offering prayers, a few asking who to call for child protective services. I played it again, this time with my eyes closed, counting. The pause after "not okay" was 0.8 seconds. Unnatural. Too long to be a breath, too short to be thinking. The pause after "properly" was 1.2 seconds. Even longer, even wronger. I never pause like that. No one pauses like that in natural speech. These weren't pauses, these were splice points. That's my voice. June 2019, March 2020, August 2018. 3 different years, 3 different contexts. 43 seconds of me saying things I never said in one sentence. They stole my voice and made it lie. I called Kathleen. Someone just posted a deepfake audio clip on Facebook, I said before she could say hello. My voice, saying I'm not okay and can't take care of my child. Can you prove it's fake? Can you prove it's fake? She asked. I was already opening my laptop, navigating to the folder I'd created the night of the ER audio _archive _2025. The name I'd chosen, thinking I was hiding evidence of threats, not realizing I was storing 15 years of radio interviews that would one day prove someone had stolen my voice. The folder contained 847 audio files. Every interview I'd ever recorded, organized by date with original files and metadata showing recording times, locations, equipment used. I searched for the phrase "not okay." Found it, June 12th, 2019. Interview with domestic violence survivor, anonymous call-in segment. I'd asked the question, "When did you first tell someone I'm not okay?" The survivor had answered, but in the recording you could hear my voice asking the question, the phrase, "I'm not okay," isolated in my inflection, my tone, my exact cadence. Searched for "take care of my child." Found it. March 15th, 2020. Parenting during quarantine segment, but it wasn't my voice saying it. It was a guest mother talking about her struggles. Someone had cut the phrase from her sentence and spliced it into mine, counting on listeners not to notice the vocal quality didn't quite match. Searched for "need help." Found it, August 3rd. 2018 mental health awareness episode. I'd said, "If you need help, call this hotline." They'd cut "I need help" from my promotional announcement and turned it into a confession. 3 clips, 3 years, spliced into 43 seconds. I have the originals, I told Kathleen. All 3 source files, with timestamps, metadata, waveform analysis showing the exact splice points. Send them to me, she said. All of them now. I exported the 3 original files, took screenshots of the waveforms showing the splice points visible as digital cuts where the audio didn't flow naturally, and attached metadata showing recording dates, times, equipment, serial numbers. Sent them to Kathleen with the subject line "Deepfake Source Files." 3 interviews. 2018, 2019, 2020. Splice points visible in waveform. Metadata proves fabrication. Then I opened timeline_master and added a new entry. December 27th, 2025. Deepfake audio attack posted to Richmond Parenting Network Facebook group. 3,400 members, 127 shares. 43-second clip fabricated from 3 separate interviews. June 2019. Domestic violence segment. March 2020. Parenting segment. Guest voice not mine. August 2018. Mental health, PSA. Refuted with original archive files showing splice points and metadata. They used my voice to kill me. They didn't know I saved all the originals. Every interview, every file. 15 years of evidence they just gave me permission to use. I sat at my desk with 3 windows open on my laptop. The viral 43-second deepfake playing on loop, and 3 original interview files from 2018, 2019, 2020, showing the exact moments where they'd cut my voice into weapons. Somewhere in this city, someone had spent hours editing audio files, carefully splicing sentences, timing the pauses, uploading the clip to Facebook through an anonymous account. And they'd done it using an archive I'd kept specifically because I knew words could be weaponized. They just didn't know I'd kept the receipts. Keeping receipts meant knowing when to use them. The next step meant going back to where it started. 10 days after the 3:12 a.m. emergency room night, I walked back through VCU Health's main entrance, not as a panicked mother, but as an investigator returning to the scene. The administrative counter clerk had no idea the billing records request was actually a search for evidence. The lobby looked different in December afternoon light, less desperate, more bureaucratic. Winter sun cut through the tall windows, turning the tile floor into something almost pleasant instead of the fluorescent nightmare I remembered from that night. I approached the counter where a woman in her 50s sat behind a plexiglass partition name tag reading Rita Holbrook. "I need to request detailed billing and discharge records," I said, "for my daughter Margot Whitfield, December 18th through 19th admission." Rita typed on her keyboard, pulled up the file. "Detailed billing and discharge records," she repeated, confirming. "Standard processing is 5 to 7 business days. Requires signature from the primary attending physician." She checked the computer screen. "That would be Dr. Preston Caldwell, Pediatric Pulmonology Executive Clinic, Floor 4. I kept my face neutral. The same doctor whose name appeared on the medical advisory board for Lawrence's campaign charity. The same doctor who'd signed Margot's prescription referral. The same doctor who was part of the network Gerald had traced through 4 LLC layers and $33 million. To get full billing records revealing the double invoice system, I needed a signature from someone who was part of the fraud. "That's fine," I said. "When should I expect the call?" 5 to 7 business days. We'll contact you when the records are ready for pickup." Rita Holbrook had no idea the standard timeline she'd just quoted would give my targets exactly enough time to notice someone was requesting records that revealed their system. I thanked her and walked toward the elevator bank. Pressed the down button, waited. The doors opened. A woman stood inside in dark blue scrubs, night shift colors, name badge partially visible. She looked up as I stepped in and her face froze for half a second in recognition. "You're the one who signed papers at the night shift counter that day, aren't you?" She said, the words coming out before she could stop them. "I remember your face." The elevator doors closed, just the two of us in a steel box moving down. I looked at her. Mid-40s, maybe tired eyes, the particular exhaustion of someone who works overnight and sleeps during the day when the world is too loud. Her badge read Records Administrator under her name. 2 seconds of silence. She glanced up at the elevator camera in the corner, then leaned slightly closer, voice dropping to an urgent whisper. "That VIP card that night, it wasn't the first time I'd seen it." The elevator reached the ground floor. Ding, doors opening. She walked out fast, not looking back, heading straight for the parking lot exit, with the deliberate pace of someone who'd just said more than they meant to and needed to be somewhere else immediately. "Wait," I started, but she was already gone. The doors began to close again. I stepped out, standing alone in the lobby. She remembered my face from 10 days ago. One night out of hundreds of night shifts, one woman signing papers alone at 2:47 a.m., and she remembered. Because what she saw at 3:12 a.m. was memorable enough to burn my face into her mind. I replayed the encounter frame by frame. Recognition when the elevator opened. Blurted question about signing papers. Then the calculation glance at camera, lean forward, whisper. 8 words. That VIP card that night, it wasn't the first time I'd seen it. Not the first time. She'd seen that blue VIP card before, multiple times. She worked night shift, records administrator, that meant access to patient files, admission logs, maybe even camera footage archives. She knew there was a pattern. She knew what she'd witnessed at 3:12 a.m. wasn't an isolated incident, and she was afraid. Afraid enough to glance at the security camera before speaking. Afraid enough to whisper instead of talk normally. Afraid enough to exit the elevator immediately after saying 8 words, walking fast toward her car without looking back to see if I'd followed. Not the first time. She's seen that blue VIP card before. Multiple times. She works night shift. She has access. She knows. And she's afraid to say more than 8 whispered words in an elevator with a camera. I walked to my car, slowly pulling the mental image into focus. When she'd leaned forward to whisper, her badge had been clearly visible. Dark blue scrubs, records administrator, title name, M. Valencia. Or Miriam Valencia. I'd seen both formats on hospital badges before. Miriam Valencia, 40-ish night shift. Records administrator. Someone who'd witnessed the VIP entrance pattern over time. Someone who recognized my face from one encounter 10 days ago because what happened that night was significant enough to remember. Someone who was carrying information she was afraid to share but couldn't quite keep completely silent about. I sat in my car and texted Kathleen hospital night shift worker witness 3:12 a.m. VIP entry. Says it wasn't first time she'd seen card. Name Miriam Valencia. She's scared. How do I approach someone who's already risking everything by speaking 8 words in an elevator? Kathleen replied within 2 minutes. You don't. You wait. If she wants to talk, she knows where to find you. I looked back at the hospital entrance. Somewhere inside, Miriam Valencia was probably finishing her shift, maybe regretting those 8 whispered words, maybe wondering if the camera caught what she said, maybe hoping I understood what she was trying to tell me without saying it directly. She'd seen the VIP card pattern. She had access to records. She remembered my face. And she'd taken the risk of speaking 8 words that confirmed everything I'd been documenting for the past 10 days. Now I just had to wait and see if she'd risk 9. I added a new entry to timeline_master. December 28th, 2025. Return to VCU. Health for billing records request. Requires Dr. Preston Caldwell signature 5 to 7 days processing. Elevator encounter. Miriam Valencia. Records administrator night shift. Recognized me from December 18th. Whispered. That VIP card that night, it wasn't the first time I'd seen it. Exited immediately. Afraid but willing to hint at pattern. Potential witness with access to logs/cameras. I saved it, started my car, drove home. And I waited to see if someone who'd already said too much would decide to say more. Miriam Valencia didn't contact me, but 5 days later someone else did accidentally. The email arrived on a Thursday morning, January 2nd, with a subject line so bland it almost disappeared in my inbox: medical records request completed. I opened it expecting bureaucratic tedium. Instead, I found the smoking gun. The message was 2 sentences from VCU Health Records Department. Your request for detailed billing and discharge documentation has been processed. Please find attached files for patient Margot Whitfield admission, December 18th to 19th, 2025. 2 PDF attachments. I clicked the first one. Whitfield_M_invoice_deck 2025.pdf. Standard hospital invoice. VCU Health letterhead. December 18th, 2025. Emergency room admission. Margot's name, date of birth, medical record number. Itemized charges. ER facility fee, nebulizer treatment, oxygen monitoring, physician consultation. Total $847. Insurance information listed, copay amount, calculated payment status showing processed. Exactly what I'd expected to see. Then I looked at the second attachment, executive clinic _internal_ December 2025.pdf. I assumed it was a clinic policy document. Administrative forms. Something routine that got automatically attached to records requests. I opened it. The header read Executive Clinic Services Internal Billing Only. Same date. December 18th, 2025. Same location. VCU Health Emergency Room. Same room number ER-14. But different patient code. Not Margot's standard medical record number. This one read EC-VIP-2847. I pulled both files up side by side on my laptop screen. Left window standard invoice. Right window internal clinic invoice. Same date, same room, same services. Completely different amounts. The standard invoice showed $847 total charges, insurance, processed, copay listed. The internal invoice showed $2,340 for the exact same visit. Same nebulizer treatment, same oxygen monitoring, same physician consultation. But the fees were nearly triple. And at the bottom in red text, payment method, private account direct bill, private no insurance claim, do not attach to standard MRN. I was looking at 2 completely different invoices for the same emergency room visit. One for the insurance company to see. One for someone else to pay privately, with a note specifically instructing staff not to attach it to the standard medical record number. A parallel billing system. 2 sets of books. Same patient, same date, same room. 2 different invoices with 2 different patient codes and 2 completely different amounts. I sat at my kitchen table staring at both PDFs open on my laptop screen, and I became hyper-aware of everything around me. The hum of the refrigerator in the corner. Winter light cutting through the window above the sink, making rectangles of pale gold on the tile counter. the weight of my coffee mug in my hand ceramic warm against my palm. The particular stillness of a Thursday morning when the world outside was going about its normal business and I was sitting at my kitchen table holding proof of systematic fraud. The ordinary moment when everything changes. I picked up my phone and called Kathleen. She answered on the second ring. "What's wrong?" "The billing records arrived," I said. "There are two invoices." "Two invoices for what?" "For the same visit. Same date, same room, same services. One standard insurance invoice for $847. One executive clinic internal invoice for $2,340, marked private billing, no insurance claim, do not attach to standard medical record." Silence on the other end. 3 seconds. 4. Then I heard her sharp intake of breath. "They sent you both files." "Records department error," I said. "The second one wasn't supposed to go to patients. It says internal billing only right in the header." "This is documentary evidence." Kathleen said, her voice shifting into the focused precision I'd learned meant she was already 3 steps ahead. "This proves the parallel billing system. Same day, same service, double billing. Two accounting systems, one visible to insurance, one hidden for private payment. Different patient codes," I added. "Standard MRN versus EC-VIP-2847. They have separate coding for the VIP system." "Do not reply to that email," Kathleen said. "Forward both attachments to my encrypted email address right now. Then print physical copies. Screenshot the original email with the timestamp showing when it was sent. We need to preserve this exactly as you received it before anyone realizes the error." I was already opening the forward window, typing her encrypted address. "This implicates hospital administration," Kathleen continued. "Not just Lawrence, not just the campaign. The hospital has infrastructure for this, separate patient codes, separate billing software protocols for keeping the two systems from cross-contaminating. That's institutional." "I'm forwarding now," I said. "Encrypted sent, printing next." "After you print, add this to your timeline. Date, time, both file names, the key details. This is the proof we needed that the fraud goes beyond embezzlement, it's systematic billing fraud with hospital participation." I hung up and got my portable document scanner from the home office. Brought it to the kitchen counter, plugged it in, waited for the startup beep. The invoices printed from my laptop, crisp black text on white paper, the red warning on the internal invoice printing as dark gray. I picked up the first page, felt the slight warmth of fresh toner, the texture of standard printer paper that somehow carried the weight of evidence. I placed the first invoice on the scanner glass, aligned it precisely with the corner marks, closed the lid. The mechanical whir of the scan head moving across the glass, light bar sweeping underneath. Small physical actions that grounded my spinning thoughts into something methodical, something I could control. Scan, save, next page. When both files were scanned, printed, forwarded, and backed up to 3 locations, I opened timeline_master and added January 2nd, 2026. Billing records received. 2 invoices for same December 18th. ER visit 1. Standard insurance, $847. Normal, MRN. 2. Executive clinic internal, $2,340. Patient code, EC-5IP-2, 847 marked. Private. No insurance claim. Do not attach to standard MRN. Records clerk error. Exposed parallel billing infrastructure. Separate patient coding system. Institutional fraud confirmed. I sat back, looked at the 2 printed invoices lying side by side on my kitchen counter. 2 files, one for the world to see, one for them to see together. And I was holding both. Holding both invoices meant I had documentary proof of the fraud infrastructure. What I didn't know was that they'd been watching me gather it. The headline hit my phone at 6:14 a.m. on January 3rd. Candidate's ex-wife rejects charity. Gesture closed, source describes unstable behavior. I was making coffee when the notification appeared. Tapped it. Local news website, Richmond Times political coverage. The article was already live, already being shared. I read it standing at the kitchen counter. A close source familiar with the situation describes concerning behavior following the divorce, including rejection of offered support and increasingly erratic communication patterns. "She's not handling this well," the source stated. "We're worried about the family, especially during this difficult campaign period." Two photos embedded in the article. One, me in a grocery store parking lot, face visible through my car window, looking tired. Cropped tight context removed, just exhaustion that could be read as distress. Two, an old Instagram photo from 3 years ago pulled from Jacqueline Ramsey's account, showing me at a fundraiser with a wine glass caption making it look recent. No direct quotes from me. No attempt to contact me for comment. Just close source and concerning behavior, and two photos designed to show instability without technically lying. Margot came downstairs at 7:15, already dressed for school, phone in hand. "Mom," she said, voice careful, "they say you're unstable." She'd seen it. Classmates were already sharing it. "No," I said. "They want you to be unstable. Those are two completely different things." "But everyone at school will see this." "I know. What are you going to do?" "Nothing," I said, "not yet." She looked at me like I'd just said something in a language she didn't understand. Then she picked up her backpack and walked to the car without saying anything else. The certified mail arrived at 10:47 a.m. I heard the doorbell, opened it to find the postal carrier with a signature required envelope. Legal size law firm, return address Sinclair and Associates. Desmond's firm. I signed for it, closed the door, opened the envelope, standing in my front hallway. Emergency motion for psychological evaluation and temporary custody modification. Filed January 3, 2026. Requesting court-ordered psychiatric assessment based on documented evidence of emotionally unstable behavior affecting ability to provide safe care for minor child. 3 photo attachments printed on legal paper. Photo 1, me sitting in my car crying, taken through the driver's side window from maybe 20 feet away. I recognized the moment 2 weeks ago after the deepfake audio had gone viral, sitting in a grocery store parking lot, trying to hold it together before going inside. Someone had photographed me through the window. Photo 2, me sitting in my car, crying from a different angle. Same day, different position. They'd circled my car, taking pictures. Photo 3, my bedside table. Prescription bottle of sleeping pills clearly visible. Water glass beside it. Book spine showing the title I'd been reading. The photo was taken from inside my bedroom, from the doorway angle looking at my nightstand. The photo of my bedside table, prescription bottle, water glass, book spine visible, was taken from inside my bedroom while I slept. I sat down on the floor in my hallway, back against the wall, legal papers spread on my lap. They'd been inside my house. Someone had entered my home, walked into my bedroom, stood there long enough to photograph my nightstand with enough light to make the image clear, and walked out without waking me. I looked at the signature on the attached treatment recommendation form. Dr. Preston Caldwell, Pediatric Pulmonology Executive Clinic. The same doctor from Margot's prescription. The same doctor on the medical advisory board. The same doctor Gerald had traced through the charity fraud network. I called Kathleen. "They're coming for Margot," I said when she answered. 6 hours later, I sat in her downtown office, the custody filings spread across her conference table next to printouts of the morning's attack article. "We have 3 options," Kathleen said. "Option A, immediate emergency restraining order based on home invasion, file counterclaim for harassment. Option B, public statement, refuting the article, media defense strategy, preemptive custody filing. Option C, no legal reaction, continue gathering evidence, strike with everything simultaneously when we're ready." "If we don't respond," I said, "the court may interpret silence as admission." "Yes." "How long until the election?" Kathleen checked her phone. 23 days. "What happens if I choose option C?" "You'd be accepting public slander for 23 days. The articles will continue. The custody case will proceed to hearing. You'll be portrayed as unstable, unresponsive, possibly confirming their narrative by staying silent. But," she paused, "you'd have time to build an airtight case with all the evidence you've gathered. Gerald's audit, the double invoices, Miriam's potential testimony if she comes forward. Everything compiled into one comprehensive package that they can't defend against. How many days can you let the world call you unstable before you start to believe them?" "Option C," I said. Kathleen looked at me for 3 seconds. "You're sure?" They deployed the media attack and custody filing on the same morning 20 days before the election, using surveillance photos taken inside my home. This is coordinated. This is their timeline. If I react now, I'm following their schedule. And if you don't react, I gather everything. I wait until I have documentation they can't refute. I strike once with everything when they're not expecting it. 23 days of being called unstable in public. I've been called worse. Kathleen closed the file. Then we document everything they throw at you and use it as evidence of harassment. Every article, every filing, every attack, it all becomes part of the pattern. That's the plan. I walked out of her office at 7:30 p.m. into January darkness, got in my car, sat there for 2 minutes before starting the engine. 23 days until the election. They'd just deployed their coordinated attack media character assassination and custody warfare, launched simultaneously, using evidence gathered through home invasion and surveillance. And I'd just decided not to use a single day of those 23 days to defend myself. I was going to use all 23 days to build something they couldn't survive. I started the car and drove home to my daughter, who'd spent the day at school where everyone had seen an article calling her mother unstable. The slander had already started, but I wasn't watching it. I was digging. Digging meant following every lead until it connected to something I already knew. The first connection arrived the morning after I chose silence. The email from Kathleen hit my inbox at 9:47 a.m. on January 4th with a subject line that made my coffee go cold. Threat source identified, we need to talk. I opened it at my desk, Margot already at school facing her second day of classmates who'd seen the unstable article. The body of the email contained one line, digital investigation report attached. Call me after you read it. I downloaded the PDF, 12 pages, executive summary on page 1. The anonymous threat message received December 18th, 2025 at 3:28 a.m. originated from phone number 804-55-57392. Registered to Summit Wellness Partners, LLC, Delaware Corporate Entity. Same, LLC. Gerald Moss had identified in the charity fund flow chart. The phone that sent me the threat was registered to the same shell company that was laundering money from Lawrence's campaign. IP address trace showed the message sent from 192.168.1.47 internal network at campaign headquarters, 1247 West Broad Street, Richmond. Timestamp 3:14 a.m. I flipped to page 6. Cross-reference analysis. Campaign headquarters security logs obtained through public records request showed key card access at 2:47 a.m. December 18th. Desmond Sinclair, Senior Campaign Advisor. Exit logged at 4:23 a.m. Desmond had been at campaign headquarters at 3:14 a.m. when the threat was sent. I called Kathleen. You read it, she said, not a question. Desmond's shift log puts him at campaign headquarters at 3:14 a.m. that night, I said. The same night Lawrence walked through the executive clinic entrance with Valentina at 3:12 a.m. 2 minutes apart, Kathleen said. Lawrence enters the VIP clinic. Desmond sends you a threat from campaign headquarters using a phone registered to the same LLC that's washing charity funds. This wasn't Lawrence acting on impulse. It was infrastructure, I said. Coordinated. Someone watching the security cameras called someone at headquarters to deploy the threat while I was alone in the ER. And that same LLC paid for executive clinic renovations according to Gerald's audit. The phone, the money, the clinic, the campaign, all connected through corporate entities designed to hide the trail. I added a new entry to timeline_master. January 4th digital investigation confirms 3:14 a.m. threat originated from Campaign HQ during Desmond's shift phone, registered to Summit Wellness Partners, LLC, same entity in fund laundering chain. Then I started reviewing my evidence timeline more carefully, looking for other patterns I'd missed. That's when I saw it. January 3rd morning attack article, published 6:14 a.m. First person to text me about it. Jacqueline Ramsey, 6:47 a.m. Her message. Simone, I just saw the article. The parking lot photo. Where did they get that? But the article didn't go live on the newspaper's main page until 7:15 a.m. I checked the timestamps. Jacqueline had mentioned the parking lot photo at 6:47 a.m., 28 minutes before the article was publicly accessible. I scrolled back through my phone logs, found another one. December 27th, the deepfake audio. Jacqueline texted at 2:52 p.m. Someone told me there's an audio clip going around. Have you heard it? The Facebook post with the audio went live at 3:08 p.m. She'd known about it 16 minutes early. Someone sat down with a spreadsheet and calculated exactly how much my best friend's loyalty was worth. I texted Jacqueline, "Tea tomorrow night, just us. I need to talk." She replied within 5 minutes, "Of course, 7 p.m." I spent January 5th preparing for a conversation I didn't want to have with someone I'd known for 20 years. Jacqueline arrived at 7:04 p.m., carrying the reusable grocery bag she always used, the one with the farmer's market logo from 3 summers ago, when we'd gone together every Saturday morning. She looked tired. We both did. I made tea, Earl Grey the way she liked it, set out the good cups, the ones that weren't chipped, sat across from her at my kitchen table like we'd done 1,000 times before. "Where did you hear about the parking lot photo before the newspaper published it?" I asked. No preamble, no small talk, just the question. Jacqueline looked at her tea. Didn't drink it. The silence stretched to 10 seconds. 15. 20. "They came to me about the debt," she said finally. "4 years ago, I tried to start that catering business. It failed. I borrowed money I couldn't pay back. They knew about it." "Who knew?" "Desmond. The campaign. They said they could make it go away if I just kept them informed. About you. How you were doing, what you were saying, if you seemed unstable." "How much?" I asked. She looked up. "What? How much did they offer you?" $480,000, she said. "That's what 20 years costs, apparently." The number sat between us like a third person at the table. $480,000, the exact amount of her debt. Someone had looked up the number, calculated it down to the dollar, and offered to make it disappear in exchange for monitoring my behavior and reporting back. How do you look at someone you've known for 20 years and see a line item in someone else's budget? "Have you been taking the money?" I asked. "They forgave half when I signed the agreement in October. The rest comes in installments as long as I provide useful information." The parking lot photo, the deepfake audio, the article calling me unstable. You knew about all of them before they went public. They told me what was coming, said it was better if I heard it from them first so I could be supportive when you needed a friend. Jacqueline stood up, put her teacup in the sink without drinking any of it, picked up her grocery bag. "I haven't decided yet," she said at my front door, keys already in her hand, "whether to keep taking their money or burn it all down with you." "Jacqueline, don't, just don't, I need to think." She walked to her car, drove away, left me standing in my doorway with 20 years of friendship reduced to a debt forgiveness agreement and the knowledge that someone had calculated exactly what it would cost to buy my best friend's loyalty. I didn't know which version of Jacqueline would wake up tomorrow, but I knew which one I needed. I needed the version of Jacqueline who remembered what 20 years of friendship meant before someone attached a dollar amount to it. She came back in 20 minutes. I heard the car pull into my driveway, saw the headlights sweep across my kitchen window, heard her footsteps on the walkway. The doorbell rang at 8:47 p.m. I opened it. She stood there with her coat still on and her hands shaking. "I drove around the block 4 times," she said. Then I realized I didn't have anywhere else to go. I let her back in, closed the door. We stood in my front hallway, the space too small for what needed to happen next. "I have 2 options for you," I said. "Option A, you refuse to cooperate. I expose the bribe agreement with full documentation. You go down publicly as someone who took money to spy on a friend. The campaign might still pay you, but everyone will know what you did." Jacqueline's hands stopped shaking. She looked at me with the particular stillness of someone hearing a verdict. "Option B," I continued. "You become a sworn witness. You provide testimony about how they approached you, what they offered, what information they asked for. You go on record with everything: the debt, the agreement, the timeline. You help me prove this is organized intimidation, not just a messy divorce." "What happens to me if I say no?" she asked. "The same thing that happens to them," I said, just earlier. "And if I say yes? Then you're a witness who was coerced through financial leverage. You're evidence of their methods, not a co-conspirator. Kathleen can protect witnesses. She can't protect people who keep taking the money." Jacqueline sat down on my stairs, still wearing her coat, put her face in her hands, started crying, not the performative crying of someone trying to manipulate sympathy, but the exhausted crying of someone who'd been carrying something too heavy for too long. "I'm not doing this to get revenge on you," I said. "I'm doing this to keep my child. They're coming for Margot with a custody case built on lies and surveillance. If you can testify about how they operate, how they manufacture evidence and buy cooperation, it helps me prove they're not credible. That's what I need. The moment someone chooses to burn down the bridge they were paid to guard." "Okay," Jacqueline whispered. "I'll speak. I'll tell them everything." She left 20 minutes later with Kathleen's phone number and instructions to call in the morning to schedule a sworn deposition. I watched her drive away for the second time that night, not knowing if she'd actually show up or if desperation would send her back to the campaign with a confession that would earn her the rest of the money. But I'd given her the choice. That was more than they'd done. The next morning, January 6th, I woke to an email from Kathleen with the subject line, "Auditor found the name." I opened it at my desk at 9:23 a.m. Gerald traced the campaign coordinator medical liaison signature that appears on all the fund transfers. It's not a ghost. It's Valentina Kendrick. Official hospital title, Patient Experience Coordinator, Executive Suite. She's been on VCU Health payroll the entire time. She has signatory authority for executive clinic accounts and campaign fund transfers. Not a mistress. Infrastructure. Call me. I called her. "She works for the hospital," Kathleen said before I could say hello. "Officially employed. W-2 income. Benefits. The whole thing." And her job description includes coordinating patient services and administrative liaison between hospital departments and external partners. "External partners," I said, "like the campaign. She's the connector. Hospital employee with authority to move money between the executive clinic's private accounts and the campaign's charity fund. She's the person behind the fabricated coordinator title. It wasn't fake. It was her real job, just described vaguely enough that no one would question it on banking documents." I thought about the frosted glass doors at 3:12 a.m., Valentina holding the blue VIP card with practiced ease. Not a girlfriend visiting her boyfriend at work, an employee accessing a system she helped build. "She's not his mistress," I said. "She's his infrastructure." Exactly. And Gerald found her signature on 46 transactions over 18 months. She's not peripheral. She's the connection point between every piece of this hospital, clinic, campaign, charity, all the LLCs. She's the name we've been missing. I added a new entry to Timeline Master. January 6th Auditor identifies campaign coordinator as Valentina Kendrick. Official hospital title, Patient Experience Coordinator, Executive Suite. Signatory on 46 transactions. Connection point between hospital VIP system and campaign fraud. Then I went to my home office and pulled out the large sheet of poster board I'd been using to map connections. Lawrence Garrett Center. Campaign face, former husband, city council candidate. Desmond Sinclair, left branch. Senior campaign advisor, Legal Shield, sent threat from headquarters at 3:14 a.m. Valentina Kendrick, right branch. Patient experience coordinator, financial connector, signatory on all fund transfers. Blue VIP card holder. Dr. Preston Caldwell, bottom branch. Pediatric Pulmonology Executive Clinic, Medical Advisory Board for Campaign, signed Margot's prescription and fake custody evaluation. LLC entities, outer ring. 4 shell companies, 4 jurisdictions, $33 million washing through. An organizational chart is just a family tree for corruption, everyone related by money instead of blood. I drew red thread between the names connecting each role to the evidence I had. The architecture was complete. I knew who did what. I knew how the money moved. I knew which doctor signed which documents. I knew who sent the threat and who held the VIP card and who bribed my best friend. 12 days until the election. I had names. I had roles. I had an organizational chart showing the complete fraud infrastructure. What I still needed, physical access logs proving someone entered my house to photograph my bedroom. Security camera footage from the hospital showing the VIP entry pattern Miriam had witnessed. The architecture was mapped. Now I needed proof of actions. I texted Kathleen, "What's the fastest way to get security footage?" She replied, "Working on it. Miriam Valencia might be our answer. I stood back from my evidence wall, looking at the red thread connecting Lawrence to Desmond, to Valentina, to Dr. Caldwell, to 4 LLCs, to $33 million. 12 days, complete scheme, full names. Now I just needed the logs and the camera. Gerald Moss places 2 printed tables side by side on Kathleen's conference table, and I see 18 months of my husband's life arranged in columns. He called 30 minutes ago, saying he had the correlation analysis complete. The logs I needed, the camera footage still pending, but this is the pattern made visible. Left side withdrawal dates and amounts from the 4 LLCs, Gerald says, tapping the first spreadsheet. Right side VIP patient admission timestamps from the hospital records Rita pulled. Everything within a 48-hour window. I lean closer. January 2025 through June 2026. $33.4 million broken into 23 transactions, each one paired with a corresponding VIP case at Executive Health Partners. Every single withdrawal matches, Kathleen asks. Every one. Gerald slides a yellow highlighter across the table. And look at the attending physician column. I scan the names. Dr. Harlan Webb appears twice, Dr. Eleanor Ashford 3 times. But one name dominates the list like a signature on a confession. Dr. Preston Caldwell, 11 cases out of 23. The same Dr. Caldwell whose office Desmond wanted for Margot's custody evaluation. The same physician whose campaign donation history Gerald traced back to my husband's first state Senate run. The physician who somehow ended up on our daughter's referral paperwork after a routine asthma attack at 3 in the morning. He's not just a donor, I say quietly. He's infrastructure. He's the one who determines which cases qualify for the VIP track, Gerald confirms. Rita found his sign-off on every intake form. He's the gatekeeper. He decides who gets admitted, and within 48 hours, money moves. Kathleen pulls out her phone, already typing. This gives us conspiracy. This gives us racketeering. This gives us a RICO case if the U.S. attorney wants it. I stare at the columns until the numbers blur. How many people came to that hospital looking for help? How many got coded into a billing scheme instead? How many left with prescriptions they didn't need, follow-up appointments designed to extend the fraud referrals that kept them circulating through Desmond's network? How many of them were parents like me just trying to keep their children safe? There's one more thing, Gerald says, and his tone shifts. I cross-reference the VIP cases with public records. Divorce filings, custody disputes, employment litigation. 18 of the 23 patients were involved in active legal proceedings at the time of admission. The room goes cold. He's farming cases, Kathleen says. He's not just billing, he's recruiting leverage. I think of the anonymous message in the hospital parking lot. The voice that knew exactly where I'd be and when. The warning that came with no name attached but perfect timing. Someone inside the system wanted me to know. Someone saw what was happening and couldn't stay silent. Maybe someone who watched 18 vulnerable people get turned into file numbers and revenue streams. We need to move faster, I say. If Gerald found this pattern, Desmond's team can find it too. They'll start erasing. Kathleen nods. I've got a conference call with the state AG's office tomorrow morning. This gets them interested. We can freeze the account subpoena, the records, lock it all down before anyone can shred. My phone buzzes. A text from my mother. Check Twitter, now. I open the app and my timeline is chaos. My name is trending again. 3rd time in 8 days. The last 2 were hit jobs, fabricated quotes, deep fake audio conspiracy theories about my mental state. This time I'm braced for it. But the top tweet isn't an attack. It's mine. The post I made this morning. The one I wrote at 4:30 a.m. when I couldn't sleep. When the weight of every document, and every invoice, and every lie felt like it was crushing my chest. 260 characters about what it's like to fight for your daughter while the world calls you unstable. What it costs to keep breathing when someone with power and money wants you to disappear. I posted it and forgot about it. I had Gerald's analysis to review. I had Jacqueline's testimony to prep. I had a case to build. But someone saw it, and then someone else shared it. And then it caught fire. 4,200 shares, 11,000 likes, 600 comments, and they're not the usual attacks. They're people telling their own stories, custody battles where the truth didn't matter, divorce lawyers who buried evidence, powerful men who used the system like a weapon and walked away clean, women who fought anyway. Simone? Kathleen's voice pulls me back. You okay? I look up from the screen. Gerald's tables are still spread across the conference room. 18 months of corruption in 2 columns. 11 cases with Dr. Caldwell's name attached. $33.4 million extracted from patients who came looking for care. And somewhere in my phone, 4,200 people who just told the world they believe me. I'm okay, I say. I refresh the page and watch the share count climb past 4,200. 15 days until the election, and for the first time the public narrative is shifting. They think I'm breaking. I'm just getting the receipts organized. My daughter's voice on the phone sounds smaller than it should. Mom, I'm in the nurse's office. I'm not sick. I just don't want to go back to class. I'm standing in Kathleen's conference room with Gerald's correlation tables still spread across the desk. 11 cases with Dr. Caldwell's name. 33.4 million in 48-hour windows. The state AG call is in 90 minutes. None of it matters. I'm leaving right now, I say. Stay where you are. I hear the controlled breathing of someone trying very hard not to cry. 10 years old and already learning how to hold it together when the world is watching. I taught her that. I hate that I taught her that. Okay, Margot whispers. The line goes dead. Kathleen looks up from her notes. Everything okay? I need to go. I'm already grabbing my coat. Margot's school. She's not hurt, but she needs me. Go, Kathleen says immediately. We'll reschedule the AG. I make it to Richmond Middle School in 14 minutes. The nurse's office is just past the main entrance, and Margot is sitting on the vinyl bench with her backpack clutched against her chest like armor. Her face is dry, but her eyes are red. She stands when she sees me, doesn't run, doesn't cry, just walks over and says, "Can we go home?" Of course. I sign her out with the front desk, and we don't speak until we're in the car with the doors closed. Then Margot pulls out her phone and hands it to me. Someone read it out loud, she says quietly. About me. The article is from this morning. I recognize the outlet, one of the state politics blogs that's been covering Desmond's campaign since he announced. The headline reads, Whitfield custody battle escalates as divorce turns public. I scroll down, third paragraph. Margot, the couple's 10-year-old daughter, has reportedly become the focal point of an increasingly bitter dispute. Sources close to the family say the child has been caught in the middle of her parents' very public battle, with both sides leveraging her well-being in their arguments. My daughter's first name in a headline. They've never used her name before. They've talked around her, referenced the minor child or the couple's daughter, but never her actual name. Never made her a person readers could picture, a 10-year-old girl someone could point to in a hallway. What did you tell them? I ask. Margot stares at her hands. Nothing. I didn't know what to say. Emma R. was reading it out loud during study hall, and then people started asking if it was true. If you and Dad were really fighting about me. If I was going to have to choose. Her voice cracks on the last word. You're not choosing anything, I say. This isn't your fault. None of this is your fault. Then why does it feel like it is? I don't have an answer for that. I should. I'm her mother. I'm supposed to have answers. Before I tell you about that 20-minute drive home, are you still with me? Comment. A, if you think I should have confronted the school immediately, or B, if silence was the right choice, and add one reason why in 5 words. A quick note. Some details ahead are recreated for emotional impact, but the core truth remains. I start the car and pull out of the parking lot. Margot turns her face toward the window. The streets blur past familiar intersections, the coffee shop where we used to stop on Saturday mornings, the park where she learned to ride a bike. 20 minutes from her school to our house. I've driven this route 1,000 times. Today it feels like the longest trip of my life. She doesn't say a word. Not when we pass the library. Not when we stop at the red light on Maple. Not when I turn onto our street and the house comes into view. Just silence, the kind that weighs more than screaming. I think about the correlation tables still spread across Kathleen's desk. The evidence we're building. The case that's supposed to prove Desmond's guilt, dismantle his campaign, expose the whole rotten system. I thought I was doing this for justice, for accountability, to make sure he couldn't hurt anyone else the way he hurt me. But my daughter just spent 20 minutes staring out a car window because someone read her name out loud in study hall. Because her parents' fight became public entertainment. Because at 10 years old, she's already learning that the truth doesn't protect you from being a target. Every minute of her silence was a reason I had 13 days to finish this. The car stops in our driveway. I turn off the engine. The silence continues for another 30 seconds. Then Margot looks at me and asks, "When does it stop?" Not will it stop, not how do we make it stop, just when, like she's already accepted that it won't end on its own. Like she's just trying to figure out how much longer she has to endure. I have 13 days to give her an answer that matters, not justice, protection. I don't answer Margot's question that night. I tuck her into bed, kiss her forehead, and close the door. Then I go downstairs and send 3 emails, one to Kathleen, one to Gerald, one to my mother asking if Margot can stay with her this weekend. By morning, I have a plan. The text arrives at 5:47 a.m. Parking lot, 6 o'clock. Come alone, but bring your lawyer on the phone. No name. I don't need one. I save the number as Miriam and start getting dressed. The hospital employee parking lot is nearly empty when I pull in at 5:58. Night shift ending, day shift not yet arrived. I park near the back entrance and dial Kathleen. "I'm here," I say when she picks up. "Stay on the line." "Understood." Miriam Valencia walks out of the staff entrance at exactly 6:02. She's still wearing scrubs under her winter coat, dark circles under her eyes that weren't there 2 weeks ago when I met her in the elevator. She scans the lot once, then walks straight to my car and gets in the passenger seat. "Kathleen Pierce is on speaker," I say. "She's my attorney." Miriam nods. Her hands are shaking. "Ms. Valencia." Kathleen's voice comes through clear and professional. "Before you provide any information, I want to confirm Virginia whistleblower statute protects voluntary witnesses in fraud cases involving public funds or institutional corruption. You're covered under state law." "Okay," Miriam says quietly. She reaches into her jacket pocket and pulls out a small black USB drive, holds it in her palm like it weighs more than it should. "I have logs from that night until 6 weeks ago," she says. 28 days of VIP patient admissions, names, billing codes, attending physicians, timestamps, everything Rita pulled before they locked down the system. "And the camera footage," I ask. Miriam nods. "Hallway security feed from executive clinic, every VIP case that came through during those 28 days. You can see who admitted them, how long they stayed, who left with them. All of it. The weight of a USB drive, 28 days of proof, 3 days of terror in someone's pocket, 6 grams of plastic." "Why not email it?" Kathleen asks. Miriam laughs, but there's no humor in it. "You think hospital IT doesn't monitor everything? I've been carrying this in my pocket for 3 days, waiting to decide. If I send it and they trace it, I lose my job before anyone sees what's on it." "And now," I ask. "Now I saw the article about your daughter." Miriam looks at me directly for the first time. "They named her a 10-year-old. That's when I knew this wasn't about politics anymore. She places the USB drive in my hand. Her fingers are ice cold. "Ms. Valencia, for the record," Kathleen says. "You're providing this evidence voluntarily. No one coerced or paid you." "Voluntary," Miriam confirms. "I watched them turn patients into billing codes for 18 months. I'm done watching." She's out of the car and walking back toward the hospital entrance before I can say thank you. I sit there with the USB drive in my palm, 6 grams, that could dismantle a campaign and drive straight to Kathleen's office. Jacqueline arrives at 10:15. Kathleen arranged everything: the notary, the recording equipment, the witness room with its cheap carpet and fluorescent lights. Howard Brennan, a notary public Kathleen's used for 15 years, sits at the head of the table with his seal and stamp arranged like surgical instruments. Jacqueline won't look at me. She sits across the table, hands folded, and keeps her eyes on the recorder. "State your full name for the record," Howard says. "Jacqueline Marie Ramsey." Her voice is steady. I'll give her that. Kathleen walks her through it systematically. October 25th, 2025. The approach, the offer, the terms. "Desmond Sinclair contacted you directly?" Kathleen asks. "Yes. He said the campaign's women's organization had resources for supporters facing financial hardship, that my debt could be managed if I was willing to help monitor concerning behavior." "Concerning behavior by whom?" "Simone, my friend." Jacqueline's voice cracks slightly. "His wife." "And what did monitoring entail?" Documenting any evidence of instability, drinking, medication use, emotional outbursts, anything that could support a custody argument. Did you enter Ms. Whitfield's home as part of this monitoring? Jacqueline closes her eyes. Twice. Once to photograph her bedside table medications, wine glass, anything visible. Once to confirm she was alone when I said she was. 12 pages to document the price of 20 years of friendship, Kathleen continues, and the compensation offered? $480,000. My medical debt would be paid through the hospital foundation, routed so it looked like charitable assistance. Through Executive Health Partners Foundation. Yes, Howard Brennan notarizes each page as Jacqueline signs, 12 pages, 12 signatures, 12 times she commits to the truth under penalty of perjury. She stands when it's done, looks at me for the first time. I'm sorry, she says. I don't respond. There's nothing to say that matters. By 5:30 that evening, I'm sitting in my car in Kathleen's parking lot. The USB drive is in my left hand. Jacqueline's notarized testimony, 12 pages bound with a black clip, is in my right. 2 witnesses. 1 day, 10 days left. I think about Margot asking when it stops. I think about Miriam carrying evidence in her pocket for 3 days, terrified of losing everything. I think about Jacqueline signing away 20 years of friendship for a debt she couldn't escape. I think about the number, $480,000. That's what it costs to buy my best friend's cooperation. That's what Desmond's campaign valued her silence at. That's the market price they calculated for turning a friend into surveillance. Which means they know exactly what I'm worth to them. I sit in my car holding the USB drive in one hand, Jacqueline's notarized testimony in the other. 10 days until the election. They needed $480,000 to buy the silence of my best friend. That's the market price of my silence. Now I know exactly what I'm worth to them. I know exactly what I'm worth to them. The question is whether they know I know. The text from Desmond Sinclair's office arrives at 2:14 p.m. Mr. Garrett requests final discussion regarding settlement. Tonight, 7 p.m., your choice of location. I screenshot it and send it to Kathleen. She calls back in 90 seconds. Do not meet him alone, she says immediately. I'm not planning to. I'm already thinking through locations, public but not crowded, witnesses nearby but not listening, somewhere with exits. Virginia is one-party consent for recording right. Yes, you can legally record any conversation you're part of without informing the other party. Kathleen pauses. You think he's going to offer something? I think he's desperate. Election in 8 days. My social media post is still trending. He needs this finished. Record everything, Kathleen says. This could be witness intimidation. We need it documented. I choose the Riverside Grill, a restaurant 20 minutes outside Richmond that used to be popular before the highway rerouted. Empty enough for privacy, public enough for safety. I text the location and arrive at 6:30. The recording app on my phone is simple. One tap to start autosaves to cloud storage every 60 seconds. I test it twice while I wait. Lawrence Garrett walks through the door at 7:04. He's alone. No Desmond, no assistant, no legal team. Just Lawrence in his perfectly tailored suit, carrying a leather folder like he's here to discuss quarterly earnings instead of the systematic destruction of my life. Thank you for meeting, he says, sliding into the booth across from me. I know this has been difficult for both of us. I don't respond. I just tap the record button under the table and wait. Lawrence opens the folder and slides a bound document across the table. The cover page reads, Confidential Settlement Agreement and Mutual Release. We want to end this, Lawrence says, cleanly, fairly, in a way that protects everyone involved, especially Margot. I flip to the first page. The number jumps out immediately. $5 million. Not 480,000 like Jacqueline. Not some creative accounting through a foundation. 5 million in a structured payout over 3 years, tax implications handled by their attorneys. Full ownership of the house transferred to my name with usage rights guaranteed for 5 years. You can stay in your home, Lawrence continues. Margot stays in her school. Custody arrangement becomes formalized exactly as it is now, joint legal primary physical with you. Desmond pays full support, college fund remains intact. You get security stability and enough money to rebuild however you want. I keep reading. Page 3 outlines confidentiality terms. Standard language about not discussing settlement amount, not disparaging either party mutual non-disclosure. Page 4 covers timeline immediate cessation of all legal proceedings, withdrawal of any pending complaints or investigations. Page 5 details the payment structure. Page 6 is where it changes. Clause 6.3. Recipient shall not access, disclose, discuss, or reference any information relating to campaign activities, charitable foundation operations, or associated medical service providers for a period of 7 years from execution date. Subclause B. Violation of confidentiality terms shall result in immediate restitution of $20 million plus documented legal fees, and may constitute grounds for custody modification due to breach of confidentiality agreement impacting child welfare and stability. Loss of child custody due to breach of confidentiality agreement. I read it 3 times to make sure I'm not misunderstanding. The recording app saves automatically. I can hear it in my head, Kathleen's voice explaining witness intimidation, coercion, illegal contract terms designed to threaten rather than settle. $5 million, Simone. Lawrence leans forward slightly. The house, stability for Margot. We can end this tonight. And if I violate confidentiality, I say slowly, I owe you $20 million and lose custody of my daughter. Standard protection language, Lawrence says smoothly. You wouldn't breach it, so it doesn't matter. It's there to ensure mutual good faith. By threatening me with losing my child if I speak. By ensuring both parties honor the agreement. His tone doesn't shift. This is a fair offer, Simone. More than fair. It gives you everything you've said you wanted: your home financial security time with Margot. How do you threaten someone with losing their child while offering them $5 million and still expect them to call it a settlement? I close the folder. I need 24 hours to review this with my attorney. 8 days until the election, Simone. For the first time, Lawrence's polish cracks slightly. I need this finished. We both know dragging this out doesn't help anyone. Then you should have brought a fair contract, instead of one with custody threats buried on page 6. I stand folder in hand. 24 hours. That's not negotiable. Lawrence stays seated. This is the last offer. If you walk away tonight, it's gone. Then I guess we'll see what happens in 24 hours. I'm in my car with the doors locked before I call Kathleen. The recording is still running. Tell me you got that, she says immediately. Every word. I'm already uploading the audio file to 3 separate cloud accounts. 5 million plus the house. 20 million penalty if I talk. Custody loss if I breach. He just offered you 5 million and threatened you with 20 million in the same conversation, Kathleen says. That's witness intimidation on tape. That's coercion. That's evidence. I sit in my car holding the contract folder with the recording saved to 3 locations. $5 million in the house. All I need to do is be silent for 7 years while the statute of limitations expires and Desmond's political career continues, and 23 other people who walked into that hospital looking for help disappear into closed files. I've been silent for 12 years. A good silent person is never truly silent, they're just waiting for the right place to speak. I find the right place at 7:47 the next morning. I walk into Kathleen's office carrying the unsigned contract folder and a list of 3 names. I'm not signing, I say before she can ask. We're activating everything. Kathleen looks at me for a long moment. She's been my attorney for 6 weeks. She knows what this means: no recall, no negotiation, no turning back. Once we send the evidence packages, the door closes. You're sure, she says, not a question. Completely. She nods once and pulls a file from her desk drawer. We've been building this strategy for 2 weeks, ever since Gerald first showed me the correlation tables. 3 targets. 3 evidence packages. 3 ways to make sure the truth lands even if one delivery fails. Walk me through it again, I say. Kathleen spreads 3 folders across her desk. Layer 1 is protection, she says, tapping the first folder. Full evidence package to your child custody attorney. The witness intimidation recording, Lawrence's contract with the custody threat clause, everything establishing that Desmond's team attempted coercion. If they try to use any of this against you in family court, we have documented proof it's retaliation. I nod. That's the shield. Layer 2 is criminal. Kathleen continues, opening the second folder. Complete financial documentation to FBI Richmond Field Office. Gerald's audit showing the LLC structures, the correlation tables, Miriam's USB with patient logs and security footage, Jacqueline's sworn testimony about the bribery scheme. We're filing a formal complaint alleging healthcare fraud, campaign finance violations, and witness tampering. That's the sword. Layer 3 is public, she says, touching the third folder. Comprehensive dossier to investigative journalist. Same evidence formatted for publication. But it comes with an embargo they publish only after FBI confirms receipt and opens a case file. We're not trying the case in the media. We're making sure the public knows once law enforcement is already moving. That's the insurance. Once we send these packages, there's no recall, Kathleen says. 7 days before the election, maximum pressure window. Are you ready for what happens next? I think about Margot asking when it stops. I think about 23 patients turned into billing codes. I think about Jacqueline carrying debt she couldn't escape. I think about Miriam terrified in a parking lot with evidence in her pocket. I think about 12 years of being silent while Desmond built a political career on a foundation of systematic fraud. 7 days is enough time for the truth to matter, I say. Kathleen picks up her phone. Then let's deploy. The next 45 minutes are methodical. Kathleen's paralegal couriers, the first package to my custody attorney's office. Hand delivery signature, required time-stamped receipt. Layer 1 deploys at 8:32 a.m. The second package goes electronically. Kathleen logs into the FBI's online tip portal, uploads. Encrypted files includes cover letter outlining the fraud scheme with supporting documentation index. Confirmation email arrives at 8:38 a.m. She forwards it to me, then prints a hard copy for the file. The third package is the phone call. Kathleen dials a number I don't recognize and puts it on speaker. Daniel Frost, a man's voice answers. Dan, it's Kathleen Pierce. We spoke last week about a potential story. The healthcare fraud case. You have confirmation. Sending the full package now. FBI complaint filed this morning, confirmation number attached. Embargo holds until they open an active investigation, or 7 days, whichever comes first. Understood, I'll have my team ready. Kathleen hangs up and sends the encrypted file transfer. Confirmation arrives at 8:43 a.m. 3 layers, 3 targets, 3 ways to make sure the truth survives even if one path fails. If the FBI moves slowly, the journalist still publishes in 7 days, Kathleen explains. If the journalist gets cold feet, the FBI still has the criminal complaint. If somehow both stall, your custody attorney has everything documented as witness intimidation defense. The evidence exists in 3 independent locations now. They can't suppress all of them. I understand redundancy. I understand survival. One more thing, I say. Kathleen raises an eyebrow. I pull up my email on her office computer. Compose new message. Recipient Lawrence Garrett's office address from the contract folder. Subject line: re-confidentiality agreement. I type 2 sentences. I'm not signing. Good luck. My cursor hovers over the send button. He'll call within the hour, Kathleen says quietly. Let him. I click send. I've already sent everything that matters. The email confirmation appears, message sent 9 a.m. Kathleen walks to the printer and returns with 3 pieces of paper. She places them on the desk in a neat row. Receipt 1, custody attorney package delivered and signed for at 8:32 a.m. Receipt 2, FBI complaint submission confirmation number and timestamp 8:38 a.m. Receipt 3, journalist encrypted file transfer received and confirmed 8:43 a.m. 7 days until the election. I look at the 3 receipts arranged like playing cards. Each one represents a different path to accountability. Each one exists independent of the others. Each one is already out of my hands and into the system. What happens now, I ask. Now we wait, Kathleen says. The FBI will review the complaint, probably assign it to a white-collar crimes unit. Could be days, could be hours. The journalist will start fact-checking, building the story framework. Your custody attorney will file protective motions based on the intimidation evidence. And Lawrence. My phone rings. Lawrence Garrett. Caller ID clear as daylight. I let it ring 4 times, 5. It goes to voicemail. 10 seconds later, it rings again. You don't have to answer, Kathleen says. I know. I silence the phone and place it face down on her desk. But he needs to know I saw it, that I'm choosing not to respond. The phone buzzes twice more in the next 3 minutes, then stops. Kathleen places the 3 receipt confirmations in a folder and hands it to me. This is your proof of deployment, she says. Keep it somewhere safe. If anyone asks when you activated the evidence, you have timestamps. I take the folder. Inside are 3 pieces of paper that represent the end of 12 years of silence. The email confirmation appears. Message sent 9 a.m. Kathleen places 3 receipt confirmations on the desk, FBI journalist custody attorney. 7 days until the election. I've clicked send. Now I wait. The waiting lasts exactly 27 hours. The first domino falls at 10:23 a.m. on January 13th. Kathleen's text reads, FBI confirmed receipt, file accepted for review, audit opens in 72 hours. I'm sitting at my kitchen table with coffee that's gone cold. I read the message 3 times, then forward it to my custody attorney. Layer 2 is active. The second domino falls at 3:47 p.m. the same day. State Election Commission releases a public statement. Candidate file review for Lieutenant Governor race, suspended pending clarification of campaign finance information. No further comment at this time. It's buried in the state government news feed, 2 paragraphs with no drama. But every political reporter in Virginia sees it. By 4 p.m., it's the lead story on local news. I watch the coverage with the sound off. The anchor's expression says everything. Eyebrows raised, that carefully neutral tone that means something significant just happened, but we can't say what yet. Kathleen calls at 5. Election Commission suspension is public, she says. That means someone inside reviewed our complaint and found enough to pause their endorsement process. How long does suspension usually last? Depends on what they find. Could be days. Could be withdrawn endorsement entirely. She pauses. Lawrence's campaign just canceled tomorrow's rally. Posted on social media 10 minutes ago, rescheduling due to logistical concerns. Logistical concerns. 6 days before an election. The third domino falls on January 14th at 2 p.m. Margot comes home from school and drops her backpack in the hallway like always. But when she walks into the kitchen, she looks at me differently. No one asked about you today, she says. What? At school. Usually someone has a question or I hear people talking. Today, nothing. She opens the fridge, pulls out juice. That's strange, right? I realize what she's saying. The noise has stopped. Not because people forgot, because something shifted. Maybe they're just moving on, I say carefully. Margot shrugs. Or maybe they know something's happening and they're waiting to see what. She's 10 years old and she understands strategic silence better than most adults. I check the news at 6 p.m. Local affiliate reports Desmond Sinclair's campaign headquarters closed early today, 2 p.m. on a Thursday. Staff seen leaving with boxes. No official statement. Campaign headquarters closed at 2 p.m. on a Thursday, 6 days before the election. That's not logistics, that's hemorrhaging. The fourth domino is the one I've been waiting for. January 15th, 8 p.m., Lawrence Garrett holds a press conference. I watch it live with Margot asleep upstairs. Lawrence stands at a podium with the campaign logo behind him, no Desmond visible. 3 reporters in the room, cameras rolling. Lawrence looks tired. The polish is still there, the expensive suit, the practiced composure. But something around his eyes is different. I'm here tonight to address recent fabrications circulated by my former spouse, Lawrence begins. His voice is steady. These allegations are part of a coordinated effort to damage my campaign and my professional reputation through false documentation and manufactured evidence. He pulls out papers, starts reading excerpts from what he claims is a psychological evaluation describing my hostile behavior patterns and pattern of vindictive actions during divorce proceedings. I recognize the language. It's from the custody filing Desmond tried to submit in November, the one that got rejected because it wasn't properly notarized. Lawrence keeps reading. Given this pattern of fabrication and the timing of these allegations, I'm calling for a full investigation into the source and authenticity of materials submitted to state agencies. A reporter raises her hand. Mr. Garrett, can you comment on the State Election Commission's suspension of your candidate file review? Lawrence stops. The paper in his hand trembles slightly. That's a procedural matter being handled by... The suspension statement specifically mentioned campaign finance clarification, the reporter continues. Does your campaign fund have any connection to Executive Health Partners Foundation? Lawrence looks off camera, to his left where Desmond would normally stand during press events. Desmond isn't there. Lawrence looks back at the camera. His mouth opens, closes, opens again. No comment on procedural matters, he says finally. That's all for tonight. He walks off camera. The feed cuts to the newsroom anchor looking startled. The conference lasted 17 minutes instead of the scheduled 45. That was Lieutenant Governor candidate Lawrence Garrett, the anchor says carefully, ending his press conference earlier than expected. I turn off the TV. The kitchen is quiet. I stand in the hallway for a moment, looking up the stairs toward Margot's room. Her door is cracked open, nightlight casting a soft glow. I walk to the kitchen and put the kettle on. The water is just starting to boil when I hear footsteps behind me. Margot is standing in the doorway in her pajamas. Couldn't sleep, I ask. I wasn't asleep. She sits at the kitchen table. Are you going back to radio when this is done? The question catches me off guard. Why do you ask that? I remember listenings when I was little. Before you stopped. You sounded different then. She picks at the edge of her sleeve. That's when you sounded like really you. My daughter remembers when I sounded like really me before I spent 12 years being silent. I pour the tea and sit across from her. Maybe, I say. I don't know what comes after yet. But there is an after, Margot asks. It's actually going to stop. I think about Lawrence looking off camera for someone who wasn't there. I think about the Election Commission suspension, the FBI audit timeline, the campaign headquarters closing early. I think about 7 days of waiting and 4 dominoes falling exactly as Kathleen predicted. Yes, I say, there's an after. Margot nods and goes back upstairs. I sit in the kitchen with my tea getting cold. 4 days until the election. Lawrence stood in front of cameras and had no answer. That wasn't failure, that was the first sign of collapse. And my daughter remembers when I sounded like really me. The after arrives sooner than I expected. The FBI press release hits at 8:03 a.m. Federal Bureau of Investigation Richmond Field Office announces formal investigation into campaign finance irregularities and related medical fraud allegations. I'm sitting at my home office desk when Kathleen's text comes through 60 seconds later. FBI announcement is live. Embargo lifts in 1 hour. I read the press release 3 times. The language is carefully neutral. Credible documentary evidence submitted by voluntary witnesses. 18-month pattern of financial transfers requiring federal review. Cooperation requested from multiple institutional partners. 2 days before the election, right on time. Kathleen's second text arrives at 8:12. Article goes live at 10 a.m. Don't read it alone. I make coffee and wait. At exactly 10 a.m., I refresh the state's largest newspaper website. The headline loads first, then the subhead, then the full article. Following the money, $33.4 million, and the connection between charity private hospital and political campaign. The byline lists 2 investigative journalists I don't recognize. The word count at the bottom says 4,123 words. I start reading. The article opens with a timeline. January 2025 through June 2026. 4 LLC entities. 23 VIP patient cases at Executive Health Partners. Fund transfers within 48 hours of each admission. The parallel structure Gerald showed me in correlation tables now translated into narrative prose with citations. Paragraph 4 names Lawrence Garrett as primary LLC beneficiary and campaign finance director. Paragraph 7 identifies Desmond Sinclair as legal counsel for 3 of the 4 entities and lieutenant governor candidate. Paragraph 11 introduces Valentina Kendrick as patient experience coordinator, executive suite, with note that she also appears in campaign finance records as event coordinator for the same organization. The article includes diagrams. I recognize Gerald's work, the LLC ownership flowchart simplified for general readers, but accurate in every detail. 4 boxes, 4 shell companies, 1 destination, Desmond Sinclair's campaign fund. An organizational chart in newsprint, the family tree of corruption now visible to everyone. The article continues. VIP billing system, double invoicing structure, standard patients charged normal rates, VIP patients coded differently with amounts that don't match services rendered. The invoices I received in duplicate now explained as systematic rather than error. Paragraph 23 quotes documentary evidence provided by close sources familiar with the matter. Close sources. Not my name, not Jacqueline's, not Miriam's, just sources. I keep reading. The article details Dr. Preston Caldwell's role as gatekeeper, 11 of 23 VIP cases under his direct supervision. It notes his campaign donation history. It mentions his professional relationship with Executive Health Partners dating back 6 years. Paragraph 31 addresses the witness intimidation attempt. Sources report receiving confidentiality agreement offering substantial financial settlement paired with penalty clauses, including custody threats delivered days before election, in apparent attempt to silence cooperation with investigation. They published the bribe. They didn't publish my name. The article concludes with institutional response section. VCU Health Statement. We are cooperating fully with federal investigators. State Election Commission. Candidate file review remains suspended pending investigation outcome. FBI. Investigation is active and ongoing. I reach the end. 4,123 words. 18 months of corruption documented. 23 victims identified by case number not name. 3 individuals named directly. Lawrence Garrett Desmond, Sinclair Valentina Kendrick. Nowhere in 4,000 words does my name appear. I close the laptop and call Kathleen. You read it? She says immediately. Every word. Your name isn't in there. I noticed. The journalist kept the agreement. You're a source, not a subject. That protects you in custody proceedings, keeps you out of the media circus, maintains your privacy. Kathleen pauses. That was the deal. Are you okay with it? I think about that. Am I okay being the unnamed architect of a federal investigation? Am I okay watching Lawrence's campaign collapse without anyone knowing I built the case that destroyed it? Yes, I say, I'm very okay with it. Good, because the responses are starting. She's right. By noon, the institutional dominoes continue falling. VCU Health Issues Statement at 11:47. Executive Health Partners, Executive Clinic Operations, suspended temporarily to cooperate with federal investigation. Patient care services, redirected to main hospital facilities. Desmond Sinclair's law firm posts announcement at 12:15. Desmond Sinclair has resigned from the firm effective immediately. No further comment. Valentina Kendrick hasn't appeared publicly. Her social media went dark yesterday. No statement, no response to press inquiries, no indication where she is. She's just gone. Kathleen calls again at 2 p.m. The infrastructure is collapsing, she says. Desmond resigned. Valentina's disappeared. Executive clinic is suspended. Lawrence's campaign released a statement saying they're reviewing all allegations with legal counsel, which is lawyer speak for we have no defense. And the election is in 2 days, I say, which means voters go to the polls knowing there's an active FBI investigation into the candidate. Even if he technically stays on the ballot, his campaign is finished. I stand at my living room window. It's January bare trees against gray sky Richmond stretched out below. 2 days ago, I was waiting for evidence confirmations. Yesterday, I watched Lawrence stammer through a press conference. Today, the FBI announced a formal investigation, and the largest newspaper in the state published 4,000 words, documenting exactly how my husband built a political career on medical fraud. And my name isn't anywhere in the coverage. I like it that way. Margot comes home from school at 3:30, drops her backpack, walks into the kitchen, looks at me. Is it over? She asks. I think about the FBI investigation that will take months. I think about the custody proceedings that still need resolution. I think about the election in 2 days that will determine whether Desmond Sinclair becomes lieutenant governor or a footnote in a corruption case. The public part is, I say, the rest takes longer. Margot nods and goes upstairs to do homework. I close the laptop after reading the article 3 times. $33.4 million exposed names, published investigation opened. I am not named in the article. I like it that way. Being the unnamed architect means no one sees you coming. They also don't see you finish. Miriam Valencia arrives at Kathleen's office at 9 a.m. on January 17th, carrying the USB drive and a notarized hospital system access log, proving the footage is unaltered. I'm already there. So is Agent Marcus Holloway from the FBI Richmond field office, mid-40s, with the kind of quiet intensity that comes from reviewing financial crimes for 20 years. He's here to take Miriam's sworn testimony and accept the evidence formally into the federal investigation. Miriam looks exhausted. Night shift ended 3 hours ago, but she came straight here instead of going home to sleep. Ms. Valencia, Agent Holloway begins recording device on the table between them. You understand this testimony is being given voluntarily and will be part of an active federal investigation. Yes, Miriam says. Please describe the evidence you're submitting today. Miriam slides the USB across the table. VIP patient admission logs from Executive Health Partners, December 2025 through January 2026. 28 days of hallway security camera footage from the executive clinic. All files carry immutable hospital system timestamps. They cannot be altered after recording without leaving digital traces. Agent Holloway notes this. And you have access to these records because I'm a registered nurse in the VCU health system. I have authorized access to patient care areas and security footage for incident reporting purposes. Why are you providing this evidence now? Miriam glances at me, then back at Agent Holloway. I delayed 6 months because I was afraid of losing my job. I watched what was happening and I knew it wasn't right, but I have student loans, I have rent. I couldn't afford to be the whistleblower. She pauses. Then I saw the article calling her unstable. I was there that night. I know she's not unstable. She was standing alone at the ER counter at 3 in the morning, signing discharge papers for her child. Agent Holloway makes another note. Can you describe what the security footage shows? Miriam opens a laptop and cues up the file. The screen shows a hallway timestamp December 18th, 2025, 3:09 a.m. This is Executive Clinic entrance hallway, Miriam narrates. 0309, Mr. Lawrence Garrett and Ms. Valentina Kendrick enter together. Security badge log shows they access the patient coordinator office. The footage continues. Empty hallway, timecode advancing. 0314 a.m. The anonymous threat message was sent to Mrs. Whitfield's phone. We know from carrier records that the message originated from a device inside this building. Agent Holloway leans forward. Miriam switches camera angles. Same timestamp, different camera. Emergency room registration desk, 0327 a.m. Mrs. Whitfield is alone at the counter signing her daughter's discharge paperwork. Nurse on duty can verify she'd been there continuously since 0312 when the prescription was processed. 3 timelines on one piece of footage. Lawrence and Valentina in the executive clinic. The threat sent from inside the building. Me at the ER counter half a hospital away signing papers for Margot. 030903 1403 27 3 timestamps that told 3 different stories on the same piece of footage. The footage proves Mrs. Whitfield couldn't have sent that message, Miriam says quietly, and it proves someone else was in the building with access to send it. Agent Holloway accepts the USB drive and issues a formal receipt. Miriam signs the evidence transfer log. The whole process takes 2 hours and 43 minutes. When it's done, Miriam stands to leave. She looks at me. I should have done this in December, she says. You did it now, I reply. That's what matters. She leaves. Agent Holloway follows 10 minutes later. Kathleen and I sit in the empty conference room with the receipt on the table. Documentary proof, Kathleen says. Camera footage with immutable timestamps. That's the kind of evidence that ends arguments. I nod. One day until the election. The phone rings at 6:45 the next morning. Election day. I'm still in bed when Kathleen's name lights up the screen. He filed this morning, she says without preamble. Emergency motion. Claims you transferred $1.9 million from a joint account in November pre-divorce. Requesting immediate account freeze and custody suspension while they investigate alleged theft. I sit up. What? It's already in the system. Filed at 6:30 a.m. on election day. There's a knock on my bedroom door. Margot's voice. Mom, who's calling this early? I'm fine, sweetheart, I call back. Let's have breakfast first. I'll handle this. I wait until I hear her footsteps going downstairs, then lower my voice. 1.9 million, same amount as the LLC transfer Gerald found in October, Kathleen confirms. I've already sent it to him. Give me 20 minutes. She hangs up. I get dressed and go downstairs. Make coffee. Put bread in the toaster for Margot. Act like election day morning is normal, even though my phone is sitting on the counter waiting for the callback that will determine whether Lawrence's final desperate move lands. Kathleen calls back at 7:07. Overturned, she says. Gerald found it in 18 minutes. The $1.9 million was withdrawn from the campaign fund late October before you even filed for divorce. Digital signature on the transfer request doesn't match your verified signatures from bank records. And the original IP address traces to the campaign office. I close my eyes. He used the same technique. Same signature forgery, same campaign office origin, same playbook. Kathleen sounds almost amused. Desperation makes people predictable. He repeated himself. They say history repeats itself, but how often does the villain repeat it within 60 days? Motion dismissed, Kathleen continues. Judge's note says, appears to be vexatious filing designed to harass opposing party on election morning. That's the legal version of calling bullshit. Margot walks into the kitchen with her backpack. Is everything okay? I look at her. 10 years old, already learning to read tension in a phone call, already checking on her mother before school. Everything's fine, I say. It's election day. You should wear something warm. It's cold out. She nods and goes to find her jacket. Election day, 7:15 a.m. His final move, $1.9 million, fabricated signature campaign office IP address. Refuted in 20 minutes. They say history repeats itself. The villain repeats it sooner. By the time the polls close, Lawrence's desperation has already become history. The election results arrive at 8:47 p.m. Lawrence Garrett, 31% of the vote, a landslide loss. I'm sitting on the living room couch with Margot. We ordered pizza. Extra cheese, her favorite. The TV shows the election coverage with maps turning colors and percentages updating in real time. The news anchor's voice is carefully neutral, but the numbers tell the story. Lawrence Garrett receiving just 31% in what political analysts are calling a decisive defeat, attributed largely to the cloud of campaign finance investigation that emerged in the final week. The screen cuts to footage of empty campaign headquarters, lights off, phones unanswered, no concession speech scheduled. Margot looks at me. So it's over, right? He lost. This part is over, I say. The FBI is still working, but the election is over. Good. She takes another slice of pizza. Can we watch something else now? I turn off the TV. We finish the pizza in quiet. No champagne, no celebration, no phone calls to friends announcing victory. Just my daughter eating dinner on the couch while the man who tried to destroy us to win an election loses by the largest margin in state history. 31% of the vote, and we celebrated with leftover pizza. Margot goes to bed at 10. I clean up the kitchen, check my email, see 3 messages from reporters requesting comment. I delete them all. Kathleen texts at 10:30, congratulations, get some sleep. I do. The real ending comes 3 days later in a room most people will never see. January 21st, 2:30 p.m. Family Court Judge's Chambers in downtown Richmond. Not a courtroom, just a small office with a desk, 3 chairs, and narrow windows overlooking the street. No press, no public gallery, no cameras. Judge Carolyn Reeves sits behind the desk reviewing documents. She's maybe 60, gray hair, pulled back, reading glasses perched on her nose. She's been a family court judge for 14 years. She's seen everything. Kathleen sits to my left. The chair to my right, where Lawrence's attorney would normally sit, is empty. His lawyer withdrew from the case 30 minutes before this hearing, sent an email to the court citing irreconcilable differences with client and ethical concerns regarding evidence authenticity. Judge Reeves looks up from the documents. I've reviewed the motion requesting emergency custody modification, she says. Her voice is matter-of-fact, like she's reading a grocery list. I've also reviewed the counter-evidence submitted by Ms. Pierce on behalf of Mrs. Whitfield. She picks up one paper, then another. The psychological evaluation submitted by Mr. Garrett's counsel was allegedly prepared by Dr. Preston Caldwell. Dr. Caldwell is currently under federal investigation for healthcare fraud and campaign finance violations. The evaluation itself was never properly notarized and contains discrepancies in timeline and methodology. Judge Reeves sets those papers aside. Counter evidence includes sworn testimony from hospital staff member Miriam Valencia, with supporting security footage, sworn testimony from witness Jacqueline Ramsey, describing surveillance and coercion, and financial audit documentation from certified forensic accountant Gerald Moss. She looks at me directly. Mrs. Whitfield, I find no basis for changing the existing custody arrangement. The evidence submitted in support of modification appears to be fabricated. Filing psychological complaints based on documents from a doctor currently under criminal investigation is not legally valid. Judge Reeves closes the folder. Motion dismissed. Existing joint legal custody with primary physical placement to mother remains in effect. Mr. Garrett's visitation rights continue as previously established. Court costs assessed to filing party. She stands. The hearing lasted 14 minutes. Is there anything else? Judge Reeves asks. Kathleen shakes her head. No, Your Honor, thank you. Judge Reeves nods and leaves through the door behind her desk. Her clerk follows carrying the file folders. Kathleen and I remain seated. Are you all right? Kathleen asks quietly. I nod. I can't speak yet. If I speak, something will break, and I need to hold it together for another 5 minutes. Take your time, Kathleen says. I need to make a few calls. I'll be right outside. She gathers her documents and steps into the hallway, closing the door behind her. I sit alone in Judge Reeves's chambers. The room is small, maybe 12 feet by 12 feet. Beige walls, standard government issue furniture, one plant on the windowsill that looks like it needs water. There's a framed certificate on the wall, Judge Reeves's law degree from University of Virginia, 1984. This is where it ends. Not in a courtroom with dramatic testimony and closing arguments. Not in front of cameras with reporters shouting questions. Not with a public statement or a press conference or a viral social media post. In a small beige room with a plant that needs watering. The most important victory of my life happened in a room so small there wasn't space for cameras even if anyone had cared to bring them. I think about the last 6 weeks, the evidence gathering, the witness testimonies, the FBI complaint, the journalist's expose, the election loss. All of it building to this moment, a family court judge closing a folder and saying, "Motion dismissed," in the same tone she'd used to order lunch. No one will write articles about this hearing. No one will analyze what it means for Virginia politics. No one will ask me how I feel or what I plan to do next. The custody case that Desmond used to threaten me to silence me to try to take Margot away, dismissed in 14 minutes by a judge who saw exactly what it was. Fabricated evidence, witness intimidation, desperate attempt to weaponize family court. Motion dismissed. I sit in the quiet for another 3 minutes. Then I stand, smooth my jacket, and walk to the door. Kathleen is in the hallway on her phone. She sees me and ends the call. Ready, she asks. Yes. We walk out together, down the courthouse steps, into the January afternoon. No one stops us. No one asks questions. No one even looks twice. I sat alone in the room after everyone had left. No cameras. No one asked how I felt. And I thought, this is exactly how I wanted to feel. The quiet victory leads to a quieter choice. The moving boxes are half packed when I realize I don't want most of what's in this house. It's been 1 week since the election. 1 week since Judge Reeves dismissed the custody case. The FBI investigation continues, but I'm not waiting for it to finish. I'm moving. The new townhouse is 40% smaller than this one. 2 bedrooms instead of 4. 1 bathroom instead of 3. A kitchen that fits 1 table, not the 8-person dining set Desmond insisted we needed for campaign dinners. Margot walks into the living room where I'm sorting through books. Why this house? It's so much smaller. Because I only want to fill it with things that are real, I say. She nods like this makes perfect sense. Maybe at 10 years old it does. I walk through the old house one last time before the movers arrive. The living room corner where I stood recording Lawrence's call about the settlement offer. The kitchen table where Margot and I ate pizza on election night. The bedroom where Jacqueline took that photograph of my bedside table wineglass prescription bottle. Evidence of instability that was just evidence of being human. I don't feel nostalgic, I feel ready. In my home office closet, pushed to the back behind file boxes and old tax returns, I find what I'm looking for. A small carrying case, black nylon, with a Radio Alliance conference sticker, peeling off one corner. Inside the portable microphone from my last radio studio, packed away 5 years ago, when I quit to support Desmond's first campaign. I carry it to the car myself. Don't put it with the movers. Margot sees me loading it. What's in that box you're carrying yourself? Something I want to make sure arrives, I say. The new house smells like fresh paint and possibility. The movers finish by 6 p.m. Margot claims the smaller bedroom. I like it, it's cozy. And I take the larger one that's still smaller than my old closet. There's a small room off the kitchen. Previous owners used it as a pantry. I clear it out and set up a folding table, a desk lamp, and the microphone. 3 days after we move in, I sit in that small room in the evening after Margot goes to bed. The microphone is connected to my laptop. Recording software open. The same setup I used for 5 years before I walked away from it. I press record. 3 seconds of silence. Old radio technique gives the listener a moment to settle in, gives the speaker a moment to find the truth. Then I speak. I once thought I had lost everything. Turns out I only lost a lie. I stop recording. Play it back. The voice coming through the speakers is mine. Not the careful modulated tone I used at campaign events. Not the measured responses I gave to Lawrence's attorneys. Not the strategic calm I maintained through 6 weeks of evidence gathering. Just my voice. The one Margot said sounded like really you. The voice I thought I'd lost was just waiting for me to stop performing and start speaking. I don't post the clip anywhere. Don't send it to anyone. Just save it to a folder on my desktop labeled audio_archive_2025. The same folder I created that night in the hospital parking lot to store the anonymous threat message. A folder that began as proof ends as a diary. The next morning, the kitchen in the new house is smaller but somehow feels bigger. More windows, better light. The coffee maker fits perfectly on the counter. The toaster doesn't look lost next to it. Margot sits at the table eating toast with butter and jam. I make coffee and sit across from her. The radio is on. I bought a small one for the kitchen, something I never had in the old house because Desmond preferred silence during breakfast. The news anchor's voice fills the comfortable space. The ongoing investigation into campaign finance irregularities continues this week as federal prosecutors review evidence submitted by multiple witnesses. Former Lieutenant Governor candidate Desmond Sinclair has not made any public statements since his January 18th election loss. Margot looks up from her toast. Do you want to hear it, Mom? I reach over and turn off the radio. No, I say. I already know that story. We eat breakfast in comfortable silence. Not the silence of someone afraid to speak. Not the silence of someone too exhausted to try. Not the silence of someone performing peace while calculating the next move. Just silence between two people who need nothing more than this moment. Silence used to be what he demanded. Now it's what I choose when I'm at peace. Margot finishes her toast and takes her plate to the sink. Rinses it without being asked. She's growing up in a house where no one is watching to see if she makes mistakes. You want me to walk you to the bus stop? I ask. I'm 10, Mom. I can walk 2 blocks. I know, I'm asking if you want company. She thinks about it. Okay, yeah. We walk together in the January cold. Her backpack is too big for her frame, but she insists on carrying it herself. The bus stop is exactly 2 blocks away. 3 other kids are already waiting. Margot turns to me before joining them. This is good, right? The new house. Yeah, I say, this is good. Okay. She adjusts her backpack. See you after school. The bus arrives. She gets on without looking back, the way 10-year-olds do when they feel safe enough not to check. I walk home slowly, 2 blocks, past houses where people are starting their days drinking coffee, getting ready for work, living lives that don't require evidence documentation or witness testimony or strategic silence. Normal lives. I get back to the new townhouse and pour a second cup of coffee. Sit in the small room with the microphone. Don't record anything. Just sit. Somewhere in Richmond, the FBI is reviewing financial records. Somewhere prosecutors are building cases. Somewhere Desmond Sinclair is facing the consequences of 18 months of systematic fraud. But I'm here, in a house 40% smaller than the one I left, with a daughter who feels safe enough not to look back when the bus pulls away. With a voice I thought I'd lost that was just waiting for me to be ready. I once thought I had lost everything. It turns out I only lost a lie. And now every morning I have a reason to not need any lies at all. And to you listening to my story, remember this. I spent 12 years being silent, thinking that loyalty meant sacrifice, that building someone else's dream meant protecting my family. I gave up my voice, my career, my instincts, all because I believed silence was strength. Don't make my mistake. Silence isn't loyalty when it protects a lie. Sacrifice isn't love when it costs you the truth. The lesson I learned through this custody battle wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my voice. When you face betrayal in your marriage, when fraud threatens your child's future, when evidence seems stacked against you during divorce, remember the truth doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. It needs to be documented, witnessed, and spoken at the right moment. Custody battles are won with evidence, not emotion. Justice isn't always immediate, but it's worth the wait. I believe God put me through this journey not to break me, but to show me that fighting for justice, even when betrayal cuts deep, is how we protect what matters most. If this story about custody, divorce, and uncovering fraud resonated with you, please leave a comment below. I read every one. Tell me, have you ever had to choose between silence and speaking your truth? Share this with someone fighting their own battle. And if you want more stories about resilience, justice, and reclaiming your voice, subscribe to this channel. I'm grateful you're here. Thank you for staying until the very end. Your time means everything to me. A final reminder: this story contains fictionalized elements for narrative impact. The core message about courage, truth, and protecting those you love is what I hope you carry forward. God bless you.